All right, guys, and we are live. Coach David here with Matt Show Jiu-Jitsu, and we have
Professor Muhammad.
Professor
Hey,
Muhammad
guys.
and our very special guest, Joe Breza, man of many talents. I was writing your description. I should have thrown musician in there as well. So guitar hero, right? So we've done a lot. I know it's actually cool how we got connected. Was I said, hey, we're looking for podcast guests. And was it a friend of a friend, like Facebook friends or whatever, just kind of tagged you? Is that what happened?
So my friend Dom, that's on my YouTube videos with me.
Oh, okay.
Big strong
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
He was like, "Hey, man, I saw this, and you should respond and
Sick.
put your name in the hat."
Cool.
So yeah.
Yeah, and then we reached. We were just. I know we were messaging, and then we hopped on a call, and pretty much you had me at wrestler. Or wrestling coach. Really, you had me at D1 wrestler, and then wrestling coach, and then you obviously did the tutorial with Jordan, and then you just threw in there for extra credit neuroscientist or neuroscience major, and I was like, dude, like, yeah, we got a lot. We probably need a couple episodes for this one. So, but let's go. Just kind of get started. We'll start with the grappling. How did we get started wrestling? How'd you get into it? How young were you? Old were you? And just kind of go through your career a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. So before wrestling, I was always in sports. So I was really big into baseball, all that kind of stuff, and then my sister got me connected with Lee Pritz, and so he. It's super weird because I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and it's like a melting pot from people from all over the country, and so all the coaches are usually living somewhere else, like in my mind. So Lee was a two-time state champion in Florida, and he wrestled actually at Eastern Michigan University, which is weird and he was an All-American there. So everything kind of keeps coming back to Michigan for some weird reason. Like that's where I work now, right? I'm a professor there. So Lee. He brought me to some tournaments, and he gave me a pair of shoes, and he gave me some singlets, and so he's an assistant coach at Arizona State University.
Oh, okay.
And so was it Zeke Jones, right, the Olympian, and so, but before that, and he was coached by Brian Smith, who was a coach of Western, which is a high school out west in Fort Lauderdale. They call it Fort Lauderdale, but it's really far out there. And Brian Smith is the head coach of the University of Mizzou. Right, so he was what's his name? I'll get back. Ben Askren's coach, right? So it's really weird because you're like,
dude, you see what happened to Ben? That's why I messaged him. Probably poor timing, but like I messaged him to just be a virtual guest, I'm so glad he made it out of that recovery, dude.
Well, if anybody's going to be able to, he's a tough guy.
He's got a great mindset about it too. Yeah. Like he's literally like just rebounding off of it.
Yeah.
To motivate other people, which is sick.
Right. I mean, he's just taking what happened and it's like looking at it. It's not a loss. It's just part of life and figure it out and move on because you have to accept it. You may not like it, but you have to accept it.
Of course.
So,
Joe, you said Priest gave you a pair of shoes and a singlet.
Yeah. So Lee,
did he see something in you?
So my sister was dating at the time this guy Travis Campbell, who was also a credible wrestler. Ended up wrestling for the Naval Academy, and then put me and connected me to his brother Troy Campbell, and they worked underneath Randy Miller, who was a Masters world champion, and oddly again Michigan was a Michigan State All-American, and so then that was the first club that I went to. So before that happened, my sister, because she was dating Travis Campbell, he was still competing and getting ready to go to the Naval Academy, and Lee.
How old were you?
11. And so Lee Pritz was there, and there was an open mat, and I went out there and I started messing around with him, and I just like right off the bat realized this guy really knows what he's doing because he's being nice to me, but like everything I do, he's just flipping me and all this stuff and being nice to me and stuff. And then he was like, "You got to get this guy into wrestling." And my sister was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Drive him out." And so in Coral Springs, it was a serious drive, but it was like you're going to be working under Randy Miller and Troy Campbell, and they were from Oklahoma. Like the Campbells. So it's like, again, Florida being a melting
wrestling
pot.
Mecca.
Oh, yeah. And they had giant cauliflowers, right? So I remember that's one of the first things that I saw. And so then I was all in. I dropped baseball. I did it for a few more years. And then after Little League, I just totally moved in to wrestling and I went 100%. And they had the Pritz is the Iowa style, and back in the 90s, that was the whole thing. Like the Brands brothers, Gable, like you're all in or you're not, right?
Mhm.
And so they kind of put that into me, but I already had it. I don't know, it was something that was just, even when I played baseball, like I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best catcher and, you know, that kind of stuff. But wrestling just took to me, and it was nice because everybody says, you know, weight classes were fair, right? So I weighed in my first tournament. Pritz gave me his state championship shoes, gave me some singlets with those really low cut ones back in the day for freestyle. So
Yeah,
that, you
yeah.
so you could slip, so people have a harder time gut wrenching you. And I went right in, and he coached me on the side, you know, and then that was it. And then I just went in 100%, and then I started, you know, training multiple times a week, and then every Saturday or almost every Saturday for a long time. The idea was to put in hundreds of matches a year, you know, just keep exposing. And Randy was a fantastic coach. Yeah, so then when it was weird that along the way, I ended up finding out, you know, my stepdad and my dad actually also wrestled. My dad's from Ohio. My stepdad is from Michigan, and my stepdad wrestled at Western. Again, I don't know why I'm connected to this state, but he wrestled back in the day when there were 9-minute matches, bro.
Wow.
3-minute periods.
Wow.
It's a long
And he
wrestling
said
match.
coming from high school where it was 6,
Yeah.
like when I went to college, it was going from 6 to 7, which sucked. But going from 6 to 9.
There's a big difference between a 9-minute match and a 6-minute match.
And he was in crazy good shape, my stepdad. Like, and he was like a black belt in Shotokan and all this stuff too. So he bought me a mat after I won the Sunshine State Games tournament. It's like a state tournament for freestyle, but it was open, so like all kinds of people would come in from different states even. And so he bought me my own wrestling mat. He had it made, like you had to have it like poured back then. And
oh, really?
Yeah, we had to put it in the garage and have like wood underneath it to breathe so it would cure before we could use it.
He poured the foam?
He didn't. We bought it that way.
But you had the foam
yeah, it custom
poured?
made. It had to be custom made, like however they, you know, the Rizalite ones. I
Yeah.
still have it. In
Wow.
fact, the mat that I have for all my YouTube videos, that's
That's
That's cool.
crazy.
and it's a 15 by 15 square. And then so after I won the state freestyle, he was like, all right, like let's get after it. I never took him down, you know, not even close.
Sure.
Not until I got to college could I do anything to him, because he was a windsurfer too, and he just stayed in crazy good shape.
Wow.
And so even, you know, so when he was like 50 and I couldn't do anything to him. And so so I wrestled him all the time. I had brothers that would beat me up.
What does that do to the psyche to not be able to take down a 50-year-old man? You know what I'm saying?
I had
Like,
that little discussion with my kids, and
man.
yeah, so I was just telling my kids, I'm like, knowing what I know today, and I was your age, there's no way I would let a 50-year-old man beat me. And I'm over 50.
Yeah.
So
And now you're doing it.
yeah, and they're like, well, you're 50. I'm like, that's right, but I have the psychology of a 25-year-old, and but
I couldn't get past his hands.
yeah.
His hands were so strong.
Yeah.
He always lifted and did stuff and very aerobic, and you know, windsurfing is hard in the Atlantic, right?
Sure.
So he'd go off in the Atlantic, and I mean, he could hold on. When we were kids, we would ride on the back of the surfboard.
Hold on like a motorcycle.
Yeah, like hang on to the little foot strap things in the back and then didn't want your feet dangling.
I
don't
mess with the ocean.
In
dude.
the ocean,
I don't
dude.
play. I don't play with
And
it.
you would
Yeah.
see fins, and they were mostly dolphins.
No,
but it was crazy.
No, I don't touch the ocean.
Well, how old are you? 40?
40, almost 46.
Oh, so now that you're like 50's right around the corner, you realize it's not that old. If you're looking at it from when you're younger, that's old. But when the closer you get to the number, it's like, well, it's not that old.
Isn't that the strange thing though? Is that when you're like not different up here, but you know, other things making you feel that way, like you're like, why did my shoulder get loose? Like what happened?
I still try. Yeah, like it is. You know, it's like anything but the obvious. Like you're like, man, my neck is still really wrapped from like 2 weeks ago. What's with it? Like what? It's, you know, and it's like, dude, you're 30. You know, you're 30s or 40s. You're not 19 anymore. You know,
it's like the will's there, the muscles are there.
Yeah.
The joints are a little bit scarier, right? Like I tap. I'm not letting that Kimura happen.
Mhm.
My shoulders won't let it happen.
Yeah.
You know, so but so my high school that I ended up going to was right down the street. They're still super well known for being one of the highest like schools around
in Florida.
Yeah, Michael Mako, Steve Mako's son, wrestles at my high school, and they put out people that are nationally ranked, national champions, like super high level all the time. And so when I started there, they were already tough. But then in my 4-year time there, we were the first. That was the first 4 years going undefeated. They held that record
sick.
for over 20 something years.
Sick.
And then all of us, I mean, it was just that mentality of more work is better. Now I know people are changing that a little bit now, but it's still there where it's like, you don't want it enough. You don't want it enough. You know, if you lose, like, stop feeling sorry for yourself. You don't want it enough. And so I ended up embracing that 100%. Probably, you know, like when I coach people, telling them not to do it as much as I did, because
How do
it was
you?
my entire identity, you know, for a long time, and it was hard to change that. And I reinvented myself multiple times over my life.
Yeah,
because of it.
I think that's worth going into. You know, it's one of our later questions, but you know, it's appropriate here. Like there's a couple different coaching styles. You know, like that that we don't really care. We don't care about your feelings here. Like that, you know. And then it is. I don't really have a full. Because I didn't grow up grappling. I didn't grow up doing any sports, so I don't have any comparison. I just know, like, I just know how I was raised, and it was very similar. Like, you know, it really doesn't matter what you want. It matters what you go get. And at least we have weekly conversations with parents of, well, it's really hard for him, or it's really hard for her, or, you know, like, where is there?
You're good.
Is there a compromise to be had? Is one better than the other? How have you said you reinvented yourself? How have you as a coach kind of adapted or changed your approach a little bit?
I hold high standards when I was coaching kids. Like when I coached a lot when I was in grad school. Like, and so because I had more time, you know, and then I took on, like, some of those kids that I knew really wanted it. And then I'm like, well, you say you want to be a state champion. You say you want to be the best. Like, what does that look like? You know? And then, but encouragement along the way was important, which I think if you don't do that, if you don't give them wins all the time, right? Where I never let them score on me, not once. I wouldn't let them score on me because they just like, but I would let them I would talk them through stuff and let them get close. But at that point in my life, I was not ready to let anybody score on me.
Not today,
in my 30s, yeah. And but it was like, because I wanted to let them know, it's like, oh, you thought you had the takedown, and then you sort of you lightened up a little bit, and you just can't do that, because somebody in college, you can literally lift and trip them and put them to their butt, and they will bounce off their butt back to their foot, right? Where they will know where the out of bounds is, and they will drag you out. I mean, it just never ends. And so when I compete, even now in judo, I have this ability to just be like, if a strong scramble happens, if a strong thing happens, I have this ability to just be like, and I guarantee you it was learned, because I didn't used to be like this. It shuts off. I forget that it happened, and I go back to the next thing. And so it's like compartmentalized time frames.
What do you mean? What shuts off?
So I don't worry about the scramble that just happened and I didn't score.
Oh, I see.
You know, because like when I went to college, you could literally end up in a 2-minute firefight, flying floors, like fur flying everywhere fight, you know, go out of bounds. If you start thinking, damn, I didn't score and I just did all that work, you're done. You know, you have to cut that off and be like, and be like, convince yourself that was awesome, that was good. Do it again, break them. Like, because if you don't do that, you start twisting the doubts. Once the doubt enters, like, you're done. And I did learn it. I think that I had it naturally to just be like, naturally I was a fighter, but I had to learn to to have a good self-talk. You know what I mean? Like, so to calm myself down. And I remember starting even in baseball, I would tell myself, you know, somebody threw a pitcher, they're always scared of the lefty that could throw 80 miles an hour. I mean, it's Florida. People play baseball. And it'd be like, if you whiffed it, you know, to not be like, oh man, I'm never going to hit the next one, but be like, that was a good swing. You got the next one, you know, and just sort of like self-talk. And so as a coach, I spend a lot of time talking to and even now, I mean, people DM me and I give them all kinds of free time and just being like, oh, that was, you know, this is what you did right. This is what you did right. You know, and then get into the other stuff and give them the wins along the way. But you also got to check them every once in a while if they think, like, people will say, I'm going to be a world champion and stuff. And it's like, do you want to do what a world champion does? Yeah. Because I've seen what that level is like, being my coach, being a, you know, world champion and stuff in college wrestling. It's a craziness factor that you're not ready for.
They're maniacs.
You don't know
there's mania.
And you don't know what you don't know. Like, even the toughest guys that I know, you can get to that. And then there's luck and there's all kinds of stuff and it can fall apart, right? So, I mean, I had terrible things happen to me in my wrestling career where it's like, you know, like my senior year, I got airlifted in a helicopter and I was ranked first in the state, and that was it. Done. Right. And then it was like, because it looked like, I think because it was so in the regionals, which is the state qualifier, my junior year, I pinned the guy. He ended up winning a state title, right? So I pinned him. He ended up winning it the year that I got hurt. So I was ranked first in the regionals, right? And then in like the quarterfinals, I got like I was behind him, and he stood up, and I let him stand up so I could claw him and lift him up and take him to his back. And he took his elbow and he went to spin around, and it caught me in the jaw. And I think what happened was because since it's a 2-day tournament and I have to weigh in the second day, I didn't really hydrate. So it rattled my brain and it KO'd me. And so when I fell and I hit the ground, I had a grand mal seizure, and like they freaked out and they strapped me to a board and they put me on a helicopter and they flew me. And that was the regionals, right? So it was like, you're not going to state now. And then I had to watch that guy win the state title, and I pinned him the year before. And the only guy I hadn't wrestled was the guy that took second, but my buddy beat him for the state finals the year before. And so I was crushed. Like, you talk about, identity. I was destroyed, right? Like, I kind of wanted to just die in the hospital. Like, I was so crushed because I didn't know what else to do, right? And then I had some college coaches that were talking to me, D3 guys, that were like, oh man, like, we can't have anybody with a broken neck. And I still have the newspaper like articles. It's like,
your neck was broken?
Yeah, there was some nurse said that, like, oh yeah, he has 2 pinched nerves in his neck, which is not true. I had a concussion and I had a seizure from it, and they thought I broke my neck because I had like a I don't know, like a delayed foot like response reflex like on the mat at that time, and they thought I broke my neck or whatever. So they flipped out and they x-rayed my whole body and all this stuff. And
they're taking your response time right after a concussion to see how you're going with it.
I don't remember most of that. I've seen the videos of it and like, and stuff, so I still have them. But yeah, like so only guy who was really like, I don't care, was my D1 coach. Called me on the phone. He goes, I was the state championships. And I was like, oh, well, because I'd already talked to a bunch of D3 guys already that shut me down. Like, we don't want that. And he was like, oh, well, I've had like 17 knee surgeries and all these other things and stuff. Like, are you fine? And I said, yeah. And he goes, do you want to wrestle? I said, yeah. And he goes, okay. Because he recruited me on the spot in a tournament in New York. Right. So it's kind of like not easy to get recruited out of Florida unless you're super good and you know where you could go around. Right. Because there's no schools in Florida, even though it's like a melting pot and people are awesome at freestyle and they go all over. Like, if you look at the stats, because like people will be like, oh, is Florida wrestling any good? If you look at the stats, like you can see Team Florida always finishes somewhere around Michigan or Ohio in the Fargo. Right. So it's not that it's not there. It's that a lot of times these poor students, they end up going and helping their families. They don't go to college, like Miami and stuff. Miami is crazy wrestling.
Do you know if like the booster clubs that generate money for like for up and coming athletes? I know it's very, very big in football. Like the kid from Michigan, I think Belleville, I think he got a was it? I don't know if you could fact check that. It's a couple $1 million. Oh wow. Yeah, he's from.
Sorry, Professor, what is it? I can search it right now.
The quarterback from Belleville, Romulus or Belleville, he went Division I, and he got a couple $1 million sponsorship. And it's obviously changed. Historically, athletes could not get any money. Like, they were like Tom Brady was using a lunch card in college at University of Michigan, and now they can make money.
Yeah,
and
NIL.
Professor, I found it. It's Bryce Underwood, a quarterback. Sorry.
Yeah, that's him.
Quarterback from Belleville High School in Michigan signed a name, image, and likeness (NIL) deal with the University of Michigan that is reportedly worth up to $12 million over 4 years. This makes it one of the most lucrative deals in college football history.
So he's from Michigan. So David,
he gets he like an athlete, like he gets $12 million over 4 years.
Sorry, I'll keep reading. It says the package estimated to be between 10 to 12 million was brokered with the help of Michigan NIL Collective Champion Circle. In late 24, the top-ranked quarterback in 2025 class flipped his commitment from Louisiana State University to Michigan. The multi-million-dollar NIL offer was a key factor in his decision. It doesn't seem you want like the details of what it entails.
That's good. That's what I wanted to know. He won a state championship as a freshman and a sophomore. Football, yeah. So, but it's unrelated to what you get from college. Completely unrelated. So my question is, Is that type of money flowing into college?
Now it is.
It is?
Like Bo Bassett, like the guy that was committed to he's from Pennsylvania. He was committed to Iowa, and then he like decommitted. But I think they were going to give him like $5 million. You know, and I had mixed feelings about it, right? Because like, and I see both sides. I see both sides of most things, right? But like, but in this case, you know, I mean, when I wrestled, they paid for my school and everything when I went to Sacred Heart. So when Reardon called me back, you know, it was like, you want to go? And I was like, yeah. And it was like, okay, go time, right? But I didn't get paid. You know, it was like,
just the perks of the tuition.
Yeah, I think that my fear is people will bounce around to schools a lot and there won't be a lot of loyalty.
No loyalty.
Because it'll be like, I can steal you if I give you a lot of money or whatever.
Yeah.
So he ended up decommitting to Iowa. And of course, everybody blathers online about what they think it is or whatever. Let the kid live his life, and he's living in the real times now, right?
And
like,
he's 19 though.
Oh, he is older for
David,
he's going to be 20 when he graduates high school.
Yeah, they could be 17.
But I'm saying like 20, like you know, you want to type about whatever you would do, but you weren't the one being offered $5 million. You know what I mean? So to your point about both sides,
he's
you know,
that's junior in high school, and so he's getting all these offers. But he did stay back like enough to where he will graduate as a 20-year-old. He'll be 19. It's not that uncommon, you know, for this kinds of things to happen, but people kind of worry about it. And then people say, well, that's why he's so good. And it's like, well, Jax Forrest is like 17 and he just made the world team. So, you know, it's just people blah, blah, blah. You know, I get a lot of it.
Do they redshirt kids in wrestling also?
Yeah,
okay.
Or you can get medical ones, right? So, like, I got a medical red shirt my freshman year. I dislocated my elbow like 90 degrees.
For those who are watching, can you explain what red shirt is and what?
Yeah, so old school used to be the case that they first year, right? You come in and they basically are like, you're not developed enough physically to just jump into D1, right? And there's always been exceptions. There's been guys that have
the white belt equivalent is what it is. It's remember the red
They're just
shirts.
like, you know, you're going to get crushed. I mean, like, you know, there were guys we would like when I wrestled, and I knew this ahead of time because I wrestled college wrestlers in high school starting in like my junior year. They would either, when we had tournaments where they came down, I wrestled them. I went to camps all over the place, right? When I went to Minnesota, Jay Robinson, I wrestled with all their D1 wrestlers and stuff. So it wasn't like I didn't know what it was like. But the difference when you're fighting for your spot, bro, like every single day, the guys that you train with, they want your spot. You want their spot, right? So the idea of it was you get to come in and you get to just wrestle. You can eat, you can wrestle, you know, you don't have to cut. Really, when we go to some, you know, open tournament, you're allowed to wrestle in an open tournament, but you can't wrestle like with a sanctioned, you know, tournament with Sacred Heart University on you. And I didn't redshirt, but that was the idea. And then you can get your physical game back on and have some fun, get into their wrestling or get into the college experience and everything. Then, right, you start your eligibility like your sophomore year. And the idea is that you've gotten ground in the room, right? Because like we got all of Southern Connecticut's D2 school. I think they were D2. They dropped their program. And we got all these seasoned wrestlers. And they, I mean, if you know anything about Southern, like Southern was in New Haven. And these guys were brawlers. I mean, they were tough kids that didn't come from a lot of money, and then there were judokas on the team. In fact, like if people ever watch my channel, they know how I feel about like dropping singles and trying to walk around coming to the waist because you're going to get bombed. And I've been saying it forever, and it's because of the judokas.
Where have we seen that on a major tournament? Where have we seen that recently on a major tournament?
All the time.
Watching what?
With Marigali and Pixley.
Oh, yeah.
That's like Marigali went in. It did exactly what he was saying. Like he went in.
And it's common. They all do it.
Yeah.
And it's just the problem
because they get away with it. Because you get away with it.
Did what? I'm sorry. Clarify.
So like a lot of people, it comes from the Gracie combatives, the stuff. The Gracie combatives teaches like go to a single, let go of the single, and go to a body lock, right? And then, but if that guy has like an overhook and you give him inside position because you're in a side body lock, you've given him inside hip position, right? And a human being's most powerful from here to here, right? Their legs. And now both legs are on the ground. He had one leg on the ground, and you just gave him back his leg, gave him inside hip position. And this is classic like judoka throws, right? You do the turn throw, you have to clear your hips, right? And so when I got into college, I was wrestling with Leo Lopes, who was in my group. He wrestled for Southern before he came here, and he was just on Shintaro's podcast, Leo Lopes. He's a serious judoka, like national champion stuff. This guy was wrecking me. And he didn't tell me for a while what I was doing. And he's like, bro, he's like, I'm pulling you up because I want you up there. And he's like, but if you take the bait and you do it, you need to stay on the legs. You need to stay low because otherwise, I'm going to throw you all day. And those judokas all did leg attacks. So grabbing legs was, they would just uchi out of the daylights out of you. Or if you tried to run the pipe, they would uchi off it, right? Do the inside trip, take you to your own back. It's like, I can show you guys all this stuff. So anyway, that was where that was really born for me. Like, oh my God, like if you're going to go upper body, stay upper body. But if you're going to go, problem is that when people let go of the single, right, they bend over at the waist and they're extended. Right. So one of the principles I teach, right, it's like extension. Extension. Like you don't want to, because then you lose your power. Try lifting a weight, right, all bent over like this versus like standing, like this. And you can't barely do it with a 45-pound plate. You probably it's super hard, right? So now they're loaded up on your hip and you're done.
Let me ask you a question. So we were talking about the starting in the mindset of wrestling.
Yeah.
And go, and into the scrambles and how you have to be present and don't worry about what happened.
Right.
And coaching as a mindset. Do you think that we don't have that we're losing some of that, and it's not the same in jiu-jitsu? And we were just talking about wrestling is becoming more expensive, and these grappling arts turning into an affluent art where you have to pay a lot of money. We price people out. Do you think that because they are paying customers that we're losing the hungry ones, and we're losing the ability to find people that are motivated? And I'm curious if you could.
I think it can be taught. I know that before I went to Jay Robinson's intensive camp, I did it 2 years in a row. It's hell on earth, right? You train 4 times a day and every practice is meant to make you cry, it's just to break you, that you can develop the mindset. The whole point of it is so that when you're in the middle of a match, because remember, wrestling is all based on competition. There's no reason to do it unless you compete, right? Whereas jiu-jitsu is not. You can say well, you can compete when you want. But if you're competing every single week and you're making weight every single week, right? And then you have to compete in the room to make your spot. It just naturally does that. And then you're working with kids that have friends and there's a peer pressure to stay on the team. So you can kind of they only have 4 years. You got to go, actually really 3, because then you need to start getting scholarship offers, right? It's like go. So I feel like there's an element of it that can be taught. But the main part, I think, is knowing what you need to know from every position so that you don't freak out. And I think jiu-jitsu does that really well. And I think judo does that really, really well. My coaches are amazing. And it's like, if he gets this grip, what's your answer? You don't have an answer, match is over. Just like that. So you need an answer. And so in wrestling,
it's the smartest thing I heard all day. If you don't have an answer, it's over.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote that one.
Because in judo, ippon, done, right? Or they drag you to the ground and pin you, done. And if you don't have, and we were talking about it earlier before this started, my coach, my sensei, Frank Gerlitz, right? He's 76 and he started wrestling super young and started judo super young, wrestled for Bucknell. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, Japanese jiu-jitsu. I think he actually went to Japan to do it so he could understand more about how judo works. And then he's a master of sports sambo. And everything that he does is that there's an answer to everything all the time. And so it's don't flip out. If he's pinning you, if you don't have the right frame, you're not getting out. And as soon as I get the right frame, if he doesn't change his pin, then I'm getting out. So we do that game where we have this pin series. And he says, well, he can try something else, but it ain't going to work. I know that here's a good example. If I go to cross, so I'm in side control. He's inside. He's pinning me, right? I get the proper frames for side control. If he doesn't block my knee from coming in, right? If he doesn't block that, then I'm going to get my knee back in. And then in judo, it's mate, right? That's it. So he knows he's got to put his fist down and go to north-south. I know he's going to do that. So if I can baseball bat his wrist, I'm out. So what does he do? He has to put his head here to block my elbow from coming across, right? So now I'm in north-south. So I better do the north-south escape because here's the clock going in judo, right? If I get the right frames, you better sit to reverse Kazuri Kesagatami.
How long's the clock in judo to make something happen on the ground?
5 seconds and you get a yuko. And you can lose by yuko. 10 seconds is wazari. That's a half a point. And then ippon, if there was no like, if there was like a failed throw, like let's say you tried to sumegeishi somebody, right, where you try to flip them over, and it's a failed throw, and you're essentially in guard. If somebody passes your guard and they pin you, 20 seconds, it's out. Now that sucks because they have no interest in submitting you, right? Because like let's say they get the right frame and you try to take their arm away to like Americana, well, you may have given them enough space, and they're going to belly out. And if they belly out and really tighten up, then the ref might let it go, but we'll do some turns to try to turn him back on his back. So it's kind of a combination of wrestling, which is why I love it so much, because it's both. But anyway, so in terms of the mindset thing, it's like if they have knowledge, then they can have some security. If they have some security, then they can feel like they can win. If they feel like they can win, then I feel like they will have some effort, right? So if they get some little bones across the way, right? Because there's something about jiu-jitsu that's better than the other styles in terms of being like, we want everybody to do it. We want everybody to try it. We want you to go through it so that you can get tougher and all these things, right? Where sometimes in wrestling, it's sort of like this, it's tough to get in there, right?
It's exclusive.
It can be. It's like, oh, well, you see, if you don't make this team, you'll never wrestle and you'll be JV, and then nobody wants to be JV. And again, that peer pressure of being a kid, it's like it kind of works, right?
And wrestling compared to jiu-jitsu is like a racetrack. Like it's high pace, it's fast, it's physical, and there's no
and they grind you to try to get you as good as you can so that you can succeed. Oh, and then now I feel good because I'm succeeding. You know what I mean? And so both, you can learn from both. I think it's awesome to train hard when you're young so you can get it, all the time and stuff. But on the other hand, like not having it be like your total identity and everything that goes into it, because then when you lose, you feel like a loser. You're not a loser. Like my stepdad would tell me on drives home, like all your friends are sitting on the couch eating potato chips and they're going to ruin the rest of the day. They're not doing anything. You showed up, you made weight. You know what I mean? And it's like, it was awesome. It was like, okay, cool. We're going to do it next weekend then.
Yeah. Joe, I think it's good to have a voice of reason in the back when somebody's investing so much time and energy into it. And the younger we are, the more the wrestling is and the competitions is about everything. And it is tied into your identity. But I mean, within reason, within a balance, and if it's a healthy thing, it's important to have the right coach or the right supporting staff around you to remind you of that. You and I know today, no, it's not. Your identity is not 100% tied to that, because if you lose, then you have nothing.
Yeah,
and that's obviously not the case. And I think it takes years to really understand that. But I think that we're all the way on the left where kids don't that's not even on their radar.
Yeah.
And I think that, because they're not hungry and they're not pushed and they don't want to be pushed. And but I think like every successful athlete at some point in their life, their identity was tied to whatever sport that they were doing. And as you get older, you kind of learn to filter out and say, it's actually not, but I learned, work ethic and community and discipline. I have a question about jiu-jitsu and grappling that maybe you could speak to. So if you take a local no-gi jiu-jitsu tournament, at what point, if you could speak to anybody that is competing, right? So when you're doing no-gi, it's a grappling no-gi event. If you could speak to how could somebody doing these tournaments learn to turn off the actual movements of wrestling in a match and then go right back to the jiu-jitsu? Because let's assume somebody's a guard player. It's going to be very simple. Just keep trying to get underneath them and to regard or attack their legs. But if you incorporate wrestling for that same bottom person, like whether it be wrestle up or hip out or hip switch, I found for myself and some of my students taking jiu-jitsu technique and wrestling, how how do you merge those two together? Because you're essentially taking small pieces of wrestling into a match, really small micro movements, and then you got to turn it off and go right back to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, one of the things I actually like the most about jiu-jitsu is the opportunities that you can have. So I was actually even thinking about, and I made a video on this, but I haven't posted it yet, about in CJI 2, right, where it's like the rules, I think, need to change a little bit I like that it's wide open, right? But at the same time, to force people to force them to do certain things, right? Like, so for example, pulling guard and that being a 10-minute match and there not being any referee interference of being like, all right, nothing's happening here. We got to stand you back up. Every other grappling style fixes that problem. And folk style, they'll be like, fine, you're losing. You're getting guys getting riding time, like in college, right? And then there's periods where it's like, well, they can't do it forever because there's periods. And then now maybe he gets a choice to do something, right? If he couldn't get out or whatever. And you're getting like, so, but to your point, like, so when I first came into jiu-jitsu, it's like, I'm not the kind of guy who came in as a wrestler and only wanted to wrestle. Like, I'm like, I want to learn how to play this game, right? And when I first entered the guard, it's like, oh, I don't know what to do from here. This is kind of weird. Like, if I was between full guard, like, you're losing, right? So I had to learn how to deal with that. And it's like, I would incorporate things where, oh no, you never turn your back on somebody, in jiu-jitsu. And it's like, well, that depends. You never turn your back on somebody in wrestling unless you have to because you're getting taken down without hand control. So if I control a hand, all of a sudden now, that's what, when I wrestled with or trained with Jordan, he was like, it's different when I roll with you because no matter what position you're in, you always have one hand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, because I can't get out. And I know he wants to wrap my head. Now, don't get me wrong. He can do whatever he wants to me, okay? But Jordan Presinger, he is amazing on the ground. But he was like, it was extremely effective, like, as I'm like on my side when I'm playing guard, I could see his hand there. So I could try to turn it into moving my hips away if I don't like the distance management. And maybe then I can incorporate it like more like wrestling where a drag is a drag, right? Like from a standing position or from your butt, right? Like the guy, Lincoln McElravy from Iowa back in the 90s, he always used to do the butt scoot drag. And it's essentially ending up almost like in a jiu-jitsu position and kicking out the far leg, like if you had it, or wrapping the near leg as like a reverse De La Hiva, depending on how the other guy reacts. And in jiu-jitsu, I think to your point is like, you got to do both. We have to have rounds like we do in judo where we taught something or whatever. And it's like, okay, this guy's going to let the guy take you down. Right. And then as soon as we hit the ground, we go into newaza. Like now we're going into a fighting match because in jiu-jitsu, it's like you need to know when you're about ready to lose that takedown and get yourself in the best position that you can get in, whether that, your guard, or maybe if you're really good at wrestling and be like, he doesn't really have me. I could kind of I could kind of turn the turtle, control the hand, get my hips underneath me. Maybe I can turn and face to pull guard to give myself a better opportunity as opposed to just being like, I'm going to concede this position. Let's see what he does. But I think that's what can kind of make jiu-jitsu amazing is that a good, and that's how I want to see CJI 2 work. Is it's like maybe overtime should be both people get a choice, just like they did in EBI, but it's like, I get a takedown choice. Like we have a takedown kind of thing. And then it's like, and then the other guy might be able to start on the back or something like that. Right.
That's a good idea.
If you can't win on the ground for 8 minutes, it didn't work. You can't have another overtime on the ground. So then it's like, maybe it's decided that way or decided from the back. And like, maybe if I can take you down in 30 seconds, but it took you 45 seconds to submit me or me to get out, right? Then I win or something like that.
I was telling the students the other day that, one of the lessons that I'd like you guys to learn from this CGI 2 is it's all a strategy. And we didn't get to see real jiu-jitsu. The rule set wasn't really set up. They're really short rounds. It's not really submission only because like you could engage, kind of disengage. And I noticed at the last 2 minutes, they were waiting before those explosions were coming.
Yeah.
And the rule set totally dictates what you see. You don't get to see the real beauty of two world-class fighters until a certain time, or until they accomplish their goal for their team or that specific match. And
and when you put that many good guys in the same place, it's like wrestling. You're not going to see pins all the time. You want to see a pin, right? Because that's
Yeah.
you're not going to see submissions all the time. And honestly, I know they say this all the time in jiu-jitsu. It's like, that's not a short enough. That's, the time was too short. I think it's too long, because like if you look at like judo's 4 minutes, right?
That's
like,
interesting. I've never heard that.
Because there's
that's
no
a good
time.
point. Yeah.
No time. But then the ref intervenes a lot. Nothing's happening down there. Mate, stand you back up, right? Freestyle wrestling, nothing's happening down there. Blow the whistle, stand him back up, right?
Yeah.
Folk style wrestling, it's different because you can keep this scramble going. But that guy doesn't want to sit there. He's got to score. There's no time, and the riding clock is ticking. So I better get out, right? And so, so like, and I think like in the training room, if you make people start in turtle, and not just like, oh, we're going to start in turtle and then go, and then it's a 5-minute round. But like they do in wrestling, where it's like, you have 30 seconds to get out. You have to, and then there's a guy blowing the whistle. And then maybe you start the guy with, he's got wrist control. And I got to I know I have to free my wrists to get out of here. And I have to stand to get to my feet, or I have to turn and pull guard, and make it so that it looks more like the match. And if the game in jiu-jitsu started on the feet and then it went to the ground, right? The chance of getting past the guard or something happening where there was so much aggression. These guys are so good, right? That they can get up and underneath somebody and get into a leg entanglement and break. That's it. Like, it's over. And I think because their damn guards are so good, that if somebody sits down, it's like, oh crap, there's so much work to do. The top guy's not going to let them get on a leg entry, right? But if it happens like the CGI one, where you have Tackett Rutolos that are just like gonna kill each other, that's what I think they were hoping to get.
Yeah.
Right. And then
age plays a factor in that.
And
too.
those were 5-minute rounds, right? And I think, and so yeah, that's for sure. But even still, though, it's like I wrestle better when somebody wants a piece of me, right? Because the more they come at me, the more they open up, right? And when guys are cagey, right, like on the ground, these jiu-jitsu, they train so much from this bottom position that good luck passing that guard, like, easily or whatever. And they can get it back easier, gi.
Yeah, so it seems like if you look at the especially higher level grappling and jiu-jitsu, it's a lot of times it's the first one to make a mistake, and the cost is very high, versus in wrestling, like you watch, like, just watch NCAA, like watch Michigan, watch Ohio, like the mistake was they got the entry, which now caused a scramble, and now it's a dogfight. But it's not as clean of man. And now I'm getting choked or leg locked in 5 seconds. So it's the full. It's the cost is really high, and so like you said, they're kind of cagey, hyper defensive. Don't want to lock up. One of my Coach Carl at Palm, a phrase he coined, I love and I still use it. He's like, if you wrestle like a chump, they'll treat you like a chump. And so if you just let people kind of bully you around, or throw clubs or things, like let them know you're there to play. Because how many times have we seen, especially high level matches, 6-minute matches? There ain't shit happening for 4 minutes, and then they got a minute and a half left, and now they decide to start doing something shorten it. And I understand they're forecasting out, I got 5 more matches to go or whatever. Like I get it, but
it could be a cultural thing too, with like so wrestlers, you win by points. You're happy with it. A win's a win, right? And it's like, but the pursuit to put points on the board, right? That was always the idea. That was the brands, the Iowa style. I'm putting points on the board. I'm putting points on the board. So that's why it was like, take them down, let them up. Take them down, let them up. Ride them. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, it's like you're looking for the submission. When they get good, you got to catch it, right? You can't if you just go 100% at somebody, they're like, forget you. And there's no pin and there's no stalling really. So that's part of it. So if they made wrestling where it was pin only, I think it could be similar. The best matches in the NCAA are not the finals. They always show you the finals. The best matches in the NCAA are people having to fight to get into the All-American rounds, right? To placing rounds. Man, you see like fur flying because they know if they lose, they're out. They don't place. They're not an All-American. And that's all they want. They want the All-American that's 8th or better in the country, right? And you've got the best guys in the world, and they are not cagey at that point. They want to kill each other. Then you get to the finals. It's for the title, right?
That's where every inch counts.
And now they play way different game.
They don't open up as much.
Yep. And then unless it's one of these things where somebody's just so dominant, and you just see them wreck people, but it just doesn't happen. It's more like CJI too, where I see like Look at how hard Rod tried to finish Luke Griffith. And it's not going to happen, you know? And the fact that, like, watching Ethan, because he's probably closer to my size, like, even though he cuts crazy weight because he's making a weight class lower than what I could do. And watching him go up against the big guy, was that Declan or whatever? I'm like, oh, that poor man. Like, because his job is to just get that guy out, right? So there comes that whole strategy.
Yeah.
Imagine if all of a sudden the rules were different and they were like, mate, right? Stop, right? You stand you back up, and then you can't pull guard. You pull guard, you lose. Like, you keep losing a point. And now all of a sudden you go from 10-9 to 10-8 to 10-7. To imagine that. Now all of a sudden, right, I have to try to take him down to get the point back. If I don't get the point back, and then guess what? Now I open up. Now you get choked. Now you get submitted, right? That's why I think if they make it, they force it, and then they should be making stand-up rules in the pit. It's not just because I'm a wrestler. It's exciting. But the pit makes it so that you can't run away.
You can't run away.
So you should be pushing. You should do more like MMA wrestling, where it doesn't matter if your double looks like crap, because you can just push somebody into the wall, right? Now they're at a 45-degree angle, and any basic ashiwaza, right, judo stuff, you can, ko-uchigari, pull people down. If there was legitimate scoring, I think people are mad because you can't really see a scoreboard. That's a problem too, right? The scoreboard, because it's in your head when you're in the middle of the match. I need to earn this. I need to earn it. So I think if that were the case, it could change it. Because in judo, it's the same way. Like, if you throw me for wazari, right? Like, so you throw me to my side, right? And you go all the way, throw it all the way back. And then I escape the pin, right? Escape the submission. You stand me back up. I'm still in it, man. And I got to fight. And if you start backing up, Shido, now the next time you're out, and if I start playing the game right, where I start getting you next to the edge, and then I get a grip on you and I'm about ready to throw you and you back out, Shido. Right. So, and they do it like that too. They point at you like, oh, like shame on you,
coward.
Yeah, so Japanese.
Yeah.
It's because they stop the match, and then the ref sits there and he looks at you and he's like, Shido, like, bad man. And so, like, there's something to it being like, you need to want this, you need to fight, and these guys are so good, man. Like, I can't imagine how hard it is to not only pass the guard, but to get to a position where you can, maintain any kind of control.
How long do you think it takes if somebody's wrestled for all throughout junior high and high school?
Yeah.
How long do you think it takes to break the habits that essentially have you give up positions in jiu-jitsu or traditional grappling today?
It didn't take me that long. I mean, my first.
We're going to call you an anomaly. I'm asking you as a coach.
I feel like they learn quick. I feel like they learn really quick.
A year.
Yeah.
I think a good 6 months to and it depends on the level of the guy that you're training with, right? Like, one of the guys that triangled me all the time and armbarred me all the time, he went and he trains with Dante Leone, and like, he got his black belt on a Dante Leone, and I mean, that guy was killing all of us, right?
Who?
Alex Lee.
Lee.
He's
I don't know,
nice guy.
fan.
He was a farrier. So he's like super strong hands. He actually was a bull rider, right? And he's not
Oh
big.
my
I mean,
gosh.
he's like 100. He's like maybe 5'9" or something, like 165, 170 pounds, and but he was unbelievable. And he wrestled actually too in high school. But it was like, I'm leading with my head. Right, I'm doing these things. So once I started realizing, like, and this is in the gi, like, when I'm going to pass the guard, I'm like, I want to have a lapel so I can keep his back off the mat. Not him. I don't think I ever beat any. I don't think I got any positions on him. But I learned about going with somebody who's better than me. Like, pull their back off the mat, and I have to have one leg pinned at some point. If I'm approaching the guard, I have to have a stiff arm on the inside of the knee or something like that to know that they want to pummel it over, right? So I can have head position, but I can't be like a wrestler, right, who's like trying to put all my pressure forward, because if people knew how to, like, lift me, right, butterfly, because that is a wrestling thing too. You just have to. And in freestyle, I learned quickly how to drop my hips. So in a lot, and I didn't start jiu-jitsu till I was 39, right? So I was, but I do believe that for me, just doing it a lot, like, I was like, okay, that's a little different, like, and I got caught, and okay, and again, that thing, switch it off. If I feel bad about it, come on, man, it's practice. You know what I mean? Like, you're coming to practice, not to, like, win, right? Like, so it's not the world title. So then I would go like, man, I remember the first practice I went to, guy, blue belt, like a pretty advanced blue belt, triangled me like 3 times in a row. And the funny thing is that first time he got it, I thought, yeah, he got lucky. Second time he got it, I was like, I think he's doing something to me. And I'm doing it. Third time, right, I'm sitting in, because I think we were starting from closed guard or something like that. I realized that he had grabbed both sleeves, and I pulled one, and then he tried to stuff it,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay. And then we were moving around, and then he did something again. He did a classic, stuffed it, shot the triangle up, and just out of nature, like I drove, over to smash him, and I was able to pass or whatever. But I was like, now I see what he's doing, right? Because again, I wasn't like so caught up in like winning that I was caught up in trying to figure out like what is it that this guy's doing, because he's clearly doing it to me, right?
Yeah.
Because I had like a guy from Europe when my coach in college was a head coach of the Olympic team in Greco. At that time he was head coach of the world team. Then he later became the head coach of the Olympic team. So we would have people who came in who were super good, and I was wrestling with some guys from Europe, and they foot swept me. Which doesn't happen that much in wrestling. And so when I realized like he timed me a step once, a step twice, and then he just kind of coaches me, right? And I'm like, what is that, right? And then he had a Diashi kind of like off a Russian. And I was like, so at that time in my life, at like 18, 19, 20 years old, I started thinking more about like, you do it once, you do it twice, it's something I'm doing that you're looking for, right? And that mindset of being like, go to practice for practice is important. You know what I mean? Because on the mat in a tournament, I'm not going to start analyzing. I got to do what I know how to do and turn it
100%. I think wrestlers have great fight IQ too. To their point, like if they've wrestled for a couple years, I mean, probably not, but they haven't developed huge amounts of habit. But they have, because they're always looking for, we'll take footwork. You're looking for tells, right? You're trying to read the tells and say, hey, what do they get? What type of patterns do we have here? And their fight IQ, from what I've seen, is incredible.
Yeah, you take a bad shot, you're gonna get front headlocked. And trust me, man, people say there's no chokes in wrestling. The hell there isn't. You know what I mean? Like if a judoka like Leo put you in a front headlock, like you can't even tap out.
And they're in competition mode like all the time. Like if you're competing every week, 100 matches in a year or whatever, like
it's the whole point.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that goes to say why you have to be in a learning mode when it goes back to practice, and you get to compete, repair, compete, fix.
And your teammates are important, right? Like super important. Because my teammates like in college watch me and my friend, another judoka on the team, Greg Ruggiero, I'm friends with. They're both he's from New Jersey. And he would watch me. He'd be like, hey, man. He was like an upperclassman. He's like really calm and chill. Never always competed in judo and wrestling, and he's like, this is what you're doing, man, like, and you look good, but you're doing this, and this guy keep catches you on, you don't want to hear it right away, you know what I mean, like you're like, I don't want to hear it, but then he's like, it's fine, man, it's fine, like, you're gonna lose in college, like, and then you start realizing like, okay, man, like I should listen to this guy, right? And your teammates can help you to be like, this is what you're doing when you're doing it, not like lecture people in the middle of practice, because everybody hates that too. Like the blue belt coach who's gonna like lecture, or the yellow belt coach who lectures everybody every time they catch you. But to a certain degree, though, it's like having that immediate feedback and knowing that it's not, because people just be like, "Oh, you're strong," and it's like if you try to like scissor sweep or something, and then I can kick my hips out, like I can switch my hips. It's not strength; it's just like a cat. You know what I mean? Like an IQ thing. And so, anyway, I mean, I think that cultural thing is important, because yes, you can train hard. It's okay to train hard.
Sure.
And it's okay that and then not get your butt hurt about it. You know what I mean? And be like, we're all trying to just, do hard things and adapt to it and get better at it and realize that like, it's okay, man. Like you're going to be fine.
Are you cool if I change gears a little bit? Because I want to go into, obviously you have a major in neuroscience, and that's actually where you currently teach. You're a professor at Eastern. What is, two questions. What is the most fascinating thing that you've learned about the brain and how the brain works? And I'll funnel it to as it pertains to like how we learn. Yeah, as humans, how we learn, because especially I know we've briefly talked about, we've talked about traditional versus eco or whatever, but just what in terms of how humans learn, like what's something that.
So, my area, I did a little bit with learning, but it's primarily sensory and then hormonal focus on stuff. It's stress, like physiological stress, right?
Gotcha.
Like water loss, salt loss, stuff like that. But,
gotcha.
But I think there's an element to repetition, but there's an element to taking something seriously, failing it, and then being okay with the failure, because like it doesn't define you, right? And so like for me, the hardest lessons that I've ever learned are the ones that taught me the most,
Mm.
right? So, it's like this, right? If this was like something, just equipment fails or somebody fails something, you don't make that mistake again,
Right.
And so, in terms of like the neural mechanisms of it, I mean, you can go down rabbit holes and stuff, but stress is an important element to learning. And when I tell my students, like in the classroom, if you don't have any stress, you don't really, because the whole learning areas of the brain, like the hippocampus, have a lot of cortisol, glucocorticoid receptors on them. And it's an important thing because stressful events causes certain nervous system arousal, right? So wakefulness. And you have more sensory information coming
More
in,
alert,
sounds
you're
and
like, what's
smells.
going on?
Yeah, right? And so that's why competition is important, I believe.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's not a test of who you are as a human. It's a test of, does this stuff really work when this guy doesn't care, man? He wants to win, I want to win. And I realize, like in judo, like it's like, man, when you grip up, like that guy's not, you can strip grips in practice easier than you can strip grips when they're like,
you see them like 3
their
or 4
life is on the line. You know what I mean? And so the coolest part that I think is that there's a balance. If there's too much stress for too long a period of time, there's ample evidence that this is detrimental. It's deleterious impacts on now learning in the future. So
are there any triggers or symptoms to where like there's too much stress or it's gone on for too long? I'm just thinking, like, how would that play into like kids' school?
Oh
yeah, like how does that play into
like
kids' school?
academics or
academics?
sports?
I'm thinking like, well, I mean, I suppose that's a different conversation. But like, what are indicators that like
overwhelmed?
You're over. It's now this is you're overstressed. It's crushing you, and as opposed to it's not serving you anymore.
Yeah, they get like high functioning children and high functioning adults, when stress has gone on for a long period of time, get overwhelmed with easy things that are seemingly easy that you do all the time are now difficult to do. And then you can measure a lot of things too, like basal cardiovascular output, things like that, right? Because stress, so there's like 2 hormones, right? Like there's and you have to always put these in the context of like how we evolved, really, because it's like a lion. If I see a lion and that thing's coming at me, right? Like I can't like logical my way out of this thing. It's adrenaline kicks in, and that's the immediate freaking get your heart rate up, get your lungs, like to be able to oxygenate and get the circulation and haul ass. But now you got to find energy to be able to keep hauling ass. So then you release cortisol, which is a glucocorticoid, and it releases it makes glucose coming from the liver and the muscles accessible, so you can continue the run. Right now, in nature, if you outrun the animal, no problem. The cortisol goes down, right? Everything goes back to, so having that sympathetic nervous system activation is like, it goes down. You've learned a lot from that situation. Like, man, I shouldn't have been, walking near that the way that hill was. I should have known that was a problem, things like that, right? You're taking in all that sensory information that came in now is being processed in a slightly different way. So every example that you have, you're driving the car and you realize, like, I knew that was going to be a problem and I had to hit the brakes, and had I saw it, like, how do I react to it next time? Like, these are all the way that they play in our normal life, right? But like, if the stressor goes on for too long, and you can reframe it, right, in terms of like what I was talking about earlier, in terms of like, how important is this for you for your life? Like, we were like talking about taking standardized exams and stuff, and how stressful they can be on kids, and right, because we put them in these boxes of like, you need to get the SAT and you need to get the LSAT or the GRE or the MCAT, right, for medical school, and then they think like I'm a number. And then like, so if they can, like, because as they're doing that and that's all they do and they don't have any other outlet, right, like cortisol stays high, and the brain areas that are involved in memory, learning, shutting those signals off actually start to die. There's plenty of data to suggest this, right, where you have like prefrontal cortex, right, so like a lot of decision making, and I'm going to make a plan to go do the things for today and all this kind of stuff, and logical thinking. And like memory areas are feeding into this brain area that shuts down the sympathetic outflow, right? So like the fight or flight reflex, right? cortisol, they have those both areas, the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus, have a ton of like glucocorticoid receptors in them. So they can be very useful because you can learn a lot, right? Cortisol goes up and those brain areas are active with all the sensory stuff. You learn, you move on, right? You learn at those things and you adjust, right? Provided those cortisol signals go down. If they don't, those brain areas actually start to like atrophy. They literally actually almost die, and they feed into the brain area that shuts it off. So you can't even shut off the stressor anymore. This is really well-known research, and like it started from Robert Sapolsky, studying like baboons and social dominance hierarchies, right? So we're like, baboons are like us, where we have hierarchies. And
I want to pause a little bit. So you're talking about the cortisol, which is a natural under a normal stressful take the lion situation. That is designed to, we'll call it rebalance or reset. You know, when the threat goes away.
That's right.
Perceived threat. Sure. Well, which is an important because there's no lions chasing us, right?
That's right.
So which is an important distinction. And so now if there's always a quote unquote threat, you know, then what will that do? Or you just answered it. If you always feel like there's a threat, if you're always, I'm gonna pick on the news here. Fuck, bro. Like, sorry, I know we got but you know, yeah, I know they like if you're always being told that there's something coming for you or someone coming for you or some, you know, like then that will actually those cortisol they've worn out because they were meant for a temporary time to survive.
That's right.
Not to to survive and or escape.
You have all kinds of problems, dude. Cortisol suppresses your immune system. And if your immune system is fighting off infections, like when you have like somebody gives you prednisone or cortisol to reduce inflammation, they better give you an antibiotic at the same time because something that wasn't even an infection now can take off, right? And so this happens all the time. And so like the perceived threat, I think is it's really embedded and it can get really deep. But like how Robert Sapolsky did it, right, with his research in baboons was fascinating because what he did was he used them as a model because they're awful to each other. And they have these social dominance hierarchies. And the alpha male basically gets to say everything. He gets all the females. He gets all the food first, all this kind of stuff. And everybody else down the chain.
Baboons?
Yeah. And they beat each other up. Right. So like if he's mean to the subordinate under him, those subordinates beat up the subordinates under them. Right. And then so those subordinates are always in this kind of like sense of like fear, like as if you were in jail and you're not part of the gang that's going to protect you or whatever. And you're lower on the totem pole was the person higher up on the totem pole and they're healthier. Their testosterone goes higher. Their cortisol goes down. The alpha. And the thing is that if the one overthrows him, right, then his status gets better physiologically and everything else. And we complain in this country about like, it's like, oh, it's because it's not organic food and everything. All they eat is organic food. And they have cardiovascular disease from the high stress, right? So the thing is, where you feel like you fit in that social dominance hierarchy is important, right? So for example, like if you feel like an inferior person, every time you walk out to your car, you're scared that you're going to get attacked, right? And you don't have any of those feelings like I have control. So it's like a loss of control. If I don't feel like I have control in any way in my life. And I think what can end up happening is that when you feel like you don't have any control of your life, now you really feel like you don't have any control of your life.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, and you can't turn off. And if those brain areas get affected enough now, you can't turn it off. You can't turn the signal off. So, and we're grapplers, right? And so we kind of get this intuitively, right? Like that you put in this hard work, you crush it out there, right? You have cortisol that goes up and stuff. Even if you've been doing this all the time, people ask, I don't really get like an adrenaline response even. In competition, I'll get a little bit, but it's pretty manageable because I know what the outcomes are. I'm not gonna die and, I'm going to be fine. Yeah, I'll go live my life and go back to my job.
Worst case scenario, right?
Yeah, so I've been able to, over a long period of time, like set that aside and not make it so, and at the same time, I have good rapport like with the teammates and stuff. So I feel like in my I have some social status or whatever, you know, but you can change your mindset into perceiving that you have that instead of being like, I am nothing. I'm not worth anything. Nobody likes me.
How do you change that?
It's, I think it's important that you have a community, man, because I think if you have friends that are always giving you the echo chamber, he telling you what you want to hear kind of thing. That don't think that that's going to really help you as much as like all of your friends are trying to better themselves too, and like everybody, and then people are supportive of you when you're not, but then also kick you in the ass if you are self-deprecating too much or something.
And you have to be open to surrounding yourself and keeping that group of people, because it's your choice. If I don't like what you're saying, if I don't like the feedback, if it's too hard to hear,
Yeah.
I could just walk away. And so you do have to be open and willing to hear that and have those people in your circle.
Yeah, men need other men. This is actually becoming a really common topic and stuff. It's like how men need other men. And I think that for a long time, we already had work environments and things of that nature that we already had each other. And then when like we all became remote, it's like, it's not the same, and men need other men to joke with them and laugh with them and poke fun at them and don't get all stop, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And toughen up a little bit and wrestle each other. I mean, all over the world, these guys like in Dagestan and all the people are always like fascinated with that in Georgia, right? In Azerbaijan. I mean, these guys jacket wrestle on their wrestling breaks. I mean, in their lunch breaks. I mean, like, they're not like, oh man, I lost to, somebody today. I'm a terrible person. They're like, I'll knock it off, right? But they'll pick fun with each other and be like, oh brother, you'd never get it. You'd never get me, right? And then they play it out, and it's like, you don't take yourself so seriously all the time, but you can put some work in, and if you make your guys' place look super cool, right? Like you have this atmosphere of it's like, what are we here to do, And we're here to burn off this freaking stress. Burn off the stress from work, dude, so that when you go home, it's down low and you sleep well and you eat well and you take care of your family and all of those things. And if you don't have one, you can build that, and have taken some control over your life.
And men need that physical outlet and I just weights are not enough. Running is not enough. Grappling, combat fighting, we need other men for that reason. And I think that
to be men, you know what I mean?
Men,
So you gotta have some time to be a dude.
Yeah.
And even if that's just you talking, and I've met men from all over the world, all different countries, right? And even when your language barrier is super bad, dudes are the same.
Yeah.
If some woman walks by and then
yeah.
like some guy looks at that woman, they're like,
It's
like,
factory reset
they can
to that.
see your eyes, and like it's stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, you're just like me. And I think that breaks down a lot of barriers to be like cultural barriers or whatever it is, to be like, dude, we're all looking to have a lot of similar things in our lives,
So I think
that's a good point.
I've got 2 thoughts. So I mean, it sounds you're corroborating like kind of what we've already known, right? And that is there's we know from experience that like when stressful day, stressful week, whatever, you get on the mat and it's like your phone starts glitching up and like it's just tag where you hit the numbers and it's like not going as fast and you're like, I just need to turn this thing off and then like reboot it. That's what it feels like mentally when you're training. But then it's not just the act itself. It's like the people you see these guys like we had we had a crew who we had like 12 guys or whatever come over from Southgate, and I love the new guys at Westland training, but I've only trained with them for a couple months now. They just started, and it was like, man, you got that whole community that comes over, and same thing, you're razzing each other, you're whatever, you're like, you get choked, you're like, that sucked, and so the grappling portion it checks the community box, most cases, and then it checks that kind of like that reset. But you've mentioned a couple times talking about identity, right? And I think that that is not exclusive to jiu-jitsu. I mean, people can make their identity anything. It could be your work, your status at work. Absolutely. It could be your status as a parent. Like my kid is everything. It could be your status. Like you can make your identity just about out of anything. That's so, right. What is your? I guess. How valuable is someone wanting to have an identity, and then what would you caution or how would you advise? Like, well, be careful because like You know, because if something like that goes away, we had that conversation. I said, I don't identify, like, my identity's not wrapped up in grappling, because if I car ride home, I lose my legs.
Yeah.
Guess who's not grappling anymore, you know, or at least certainly not the same way. So what would you caution that, you know?
Many
on that
times in my
identity?
life, right, like when I transferred right out of Sacred Heart to Florida State University, and I was dealing with a lot of injuries, and like, and it just like, this just was not like going. I'm like, and my fingers are numb, and my foot is numb, and it's like I can't like. And then there was some other stuff, but it was like I need to figure out what I want to do. And I realized during that time, like what's my end goal? Am I going to college to, what am I going to college for? You know, like, am I going to college to be a wrestling coach? Because I've seen the bottleneck that is. And I felt like I knew a lot, but it was like, there's a pedigree, there's all these things, right? So when I went to transfer to Florida State, I got into psychology there. I'd taken some test, and it said that like you would be good in psychology because you'd work with people, because you'd like talking to people or something like that. And then so that's how I got started. And it was like, then they said, well, you need to do research or you'll never get a PhD in psychology. Like, that's what you have to do. And I was like, okay. And I wanted to start clinical. So then I got into a lab and I reinvented myself, and I took myself overly seriously again. Right. And then I got all in it, and I went down these rabbit holes, and I got
you
in the
think
rabbit
that
holes.
you think that was learned behavior or natural behavior on you to throw yourself,
It's
you know,
possibly
you inject into baseball, you inject into, you know, 100% of baseball, 100% wrestling.
Probably lack of validation.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
sure. Yeah.
and trying to get like, you know, like at least that's what I think it is now. You know what I mean? It was like they're trying to, it was a big family, you know, a lot of brothers and sisters, and it's like maybe there's something there where it's like you need to identify yourself or something so you can fit in there, because everybody's got their own different thing or whatever. Not in a bad way, just the way it is. You
Just
know,
a
it
matter of fact way.
This happens in animals, like in cages. You know,
Yeah.
they create these social dominance hierarchies or whatever. But I went in again, all in, and then I made like neuroscience my identity again, right? I went through this whole thing, and I remember at one point I threw away a bunch of medals, and I threw away like bout sheets, and I was like, F all that, like, you know, I didn't.
You're wrestling. You're wrestling.
I was like, I didn't get what I wanted out of it. I was so everything was so screwed up. Like, why did I get hurt when it mattered? You know, and all these weird things, right? And so I struggled with it, but I don't think the struggle was bad. I think that what it did is that it made me be like, take it, accept it, move on. I didn't deal with it well at that time. But like if you so by going all in, I ended up making a name for myself in neuro, which is like, so, and you know, publish a lot, get a good postdoc, right? Did the postdoc, got a faculty position, right? And it was like identity. And it got to me. It started to become a problem. You know what I mean? And my wife and I actually started having problems because it was like the workload, like, you don't get it. If I don't get tenure, it's like my life is over, right? And it was like, and because you're so bottlenecked, like good luck getting another job and anything else, right? So, you know, I ended up having to catch myself. I had to be honest with myself and be like, dude, what are you doing? You know, things are going to start falling apart. You don't have control over things other than your job, right? And it's like, so, you know, I changed my lifestyle, right? And I like, you know, to change my lifestyle, like quit drinking, like all those things that I was trying to do to manage stress, which was not healthy. It wasn't working out. That was the longest time that I'd taken out, by the way, of grappling in my life. Like I wasn't coaching except for if people called me.
How many years?
Probably it's okay. So like 5 years, because
it's a big gap.
Yeah, from my postdoc to, and I would like, people would send me footage like of their kids that like I had coached with their brothers, like that they had, and be like, can you break down like what they're doing wrong, and maybe you can talk to them and encourage them. And that was like the only coaching I was doing, right? But I was trying to build my career, and so my postdoc was crazy. I was working crazy hours, leaving the house at 7 a.m. and often, not even kidding, getting home at midnight and getting right back in the car and doing it the next day. And so I only saw my daughter on the weekends, except through like a camera. Yeah, and that was not sustainable. My wife was not going well for us. And then like I got this job at Eastern, and it was like, okay, the next big thing, I got to get tenure, right? And then like around year three in that, the stuff started falling apart, you know. And then it was like
it's a long time to keep that type of.
Oh yeah, and I was burning the candle at both ends, and so I had to check myself. And so and then now I'm like, you know, even though I'm doing better now than I was like in my academic career, like with, you know, NIH grants and all this stuff. But I just don't take it as seriously anymore. I'm like, if a grant happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's not that I'm not doing the work. I'm doing the work. I set it aside. I go home. I do my family life.
That's a pretty valuable kind of notation, as well as like, you mentioned control things. You know, this feeling of can't control it. Well, what can you control?
The controllables.
I can control my input, and I know. Are you familiar? You got to be familiar with. Mindset Mike. I can't remember. I don't know his last name.
Hmm.
Mindset Mike. He's on Insta. I don't know his full name, but he's
Hmm.
he's a wrestling coach. He talks
Okay.
specifically pertains about mindset. You'd like him, but he talks about like competing's a privilege, and yeah, like gratitude before matches.
No doubt.
For the privilege to compete, you can't control the outcome.
That's right.
Like you can't control. You can only control what you've done up to this point.
And your effort.
Yeah, and your effort. If you did that, you can go out there with gratitude and have fun. Like, and that's
Can't forget to have fun.
Yeah, and dude, and he's a little bona fide wrestler. Like I think D1 place, and you're like, what do you mean have fun?
Yeah.
Like you think football's fun? Fun said like that's and that is
that was hard for me. I hated wrestling for a long time because it was a job and I needed to be the best and I needed to do this. And then I remember my collegiate coach being like, remember to have fun. And I'm like, fun? I'm getting a fight. And then I had to change my mindset about it.
Did you get your tenure?
Oh, yeah. So I was tenured in 2018 and then like re-tenured. So I'm like tenure because I'm full professor now like a year ago.
So what if somebody says your advice now is like, don't take it too seriously and that balance, and we're talking at the high stress areas and, recalibrating it. Someone on the outside might say, in order to achieve something, well, dude, you say that now, easy for you to say,
right.
But like, look what you had to go through to get there. And every story of elevation or success has that portion to it. So would it be fair to give somebody the same advice when that's like saying you don't have to grind like I did and go through what I did? But like,
so I'm doing in judo, right? Like this is something I took on like later, right? And I wanna do well in it, but I know I'm not going to be a world champion. I know my limitations. I'm 40 something years old and I'm competing against young guys, but I do want to get as good as I can, right? Because what I realized teaching the jiu-jitsu guys how to wrestle was when we put a jacket on, the game changed. And I realized I need to learn how to jacket wrestle. Right. And so then I started
jacket. It's calls gi takedowns. Jacket wrestling.
That's what judo is, right? So all these different forms of jacket wrestling all over the world, right? Like Karash and Sambo, and there's jacket wrestling, right? So I was like, I don't understand this, right? Now I could have been like, so I'm gonna, because I know guys that go in their 40s and they do this, like, and they want to be a Masters world champion or whatever. Like I'm like, I have my days that I put into judo. And I have my days that I put into my judo with my children. Like my one child is just got into judo. She does kids judo and stuff.
Oh,
and they're awesome. They love for it to be fun with the kids and all this stuff. They don't want to pressure them, right? But they'll do a randori round, right? They'll fight they'll spar a little bit, and they're one-on-one because the place isn't big, so it's like everybody's watching and yay, and all that, and like. It does sound like that, but let me tell you, the aftermath of burning the candle at both ends and me having to recover from that, I think I am now actually showing that, like in my career and then in judo, like that it's like not being able to put in the work and be okay with what I did and walk away from it, and then not just turning, the wheels turning when I'm not doing it all the time is an important element. And I think a lot of it came with maturity, right? And but like, yes, you have to take it seriously. Yes, you have to make practice worthwhile. When I go to practice, I am practicing something that I know that I need to work on. And I don't care what the outcome is.
Intention.
I do not care what the outcome is. My goal is, I'm playing left on right because I had to switch legs because my knee is so bad after the surgery and everything. Then I'm like, they grip up on this side. I'm like, they outgripped me. Now, what are my options? I can strip it or I can go in the armpit and block them. Right. And then now I have a whole series of things that I can do from there. Right. When I first started learning that, and I'm going up against guys that are all placed in the nationals, if not national, or at EMU judo, like these guys know how to play, and they're going to play easy. They're not going to like kill you or anything. But I'm like, my goal is to just get that grip and see whether or not they can throw me based on, me getting this position, flaring it out so they can't get this hand. Right, because if they get two hands on you, they get the wrist and they get the lapel. Now you're dead. But if now it becomes a hip playing game, hip jockeying game. So I would just be like, I have this one goal. I do this one thing or whatever. I walk away from it. I might think about it. I might look up some stuff or whatever, but I don't stress about it. Right, and then when I go back on it, like it's intentional. I can't train every day anymore. So and then I do my weightlifting and everything because I have to. And like. my shoulder was so bad, like a few years back. And then that guy that's on my channel, Dom Magliocco, was a professional bodybuilder. And I never really thought about it like this, but they can't compete. They can't keep building muscle if they're hurt and they can't work around it. And so I was going to PT and it really wasn't helping. And then he was like, no, dude, you got to do this. You got to do that. And then so he had me doing like bent over rows, but with my arms like inverted and stuff, and not like this, because it's the exact opposite of incline. It's this, right? And freaking in no time, it started getting better, right? And so then he's been my weightlifting coach afterwards. But that's a big part of my life. It makes me feel satisfied that I'm doing something that I need to do to stay at 45 years old and still be able to grapple and stuff. But then within the lane of being like, I know what I can achieve and know what I can't achieve, right? Like, and so at Eastern, I'm not, as I have a good grant, you know, and it's the one that everybody's trying to get, but I'm not trying to like more people, more things, you know what I mean? Because I have a family and I've figured out the balance of with my wife and my kids, like how to make this work so that my life is more meaningful as opposed to just achieve, right? Because there's a point at which you get what you want and then you think that that's going to be the answer, and literally got tenure, and I was looking to go to full professor. Like the minute it happened.
And you know what? That's a mindset, and it's a mindset to be, and that's a competitiveness that you probably have in you. And like I said, it's easy when you look at somebody either older that's accomplished a little bit for them to say, you know, life is short. Don't take things too seriously. But I do believe that that like self-motivation and drive is like, it's I don't want to say gone, but it's so hard to find people to do that. And in the short term, you do have to wrap yourself into like, this is who I am. This is my identity, which is not a healthy way to live long term, but
it depends on what and I think to be smart or to be realistic about whatever those goals are, right? So like, I don't want to switch careers at this point. Like if I had to, because the whole system fails and I have to go do something else, I will do that, right? If I have to like, okay, well, I'm small and strong, so I can be a plumber.
But you know,
you'd be a great plumber.
The one goal you had, and you mentioned earlier, I'm not sure if it was on or before the podcast, was using wrestling to get a scholarship. And you were working really hard. And that one main goal put you led you to where you're at today. Yeah. And so using wrestling as a means to something, and that was that, you know, you did that and you took that, and you know, today you're a college professor, with tenure, and so that is you know, being a national champion or All-American is one goal, but using it for something for later on in your life is.
I would have been in big trouble. Without wrestling, I would have been in big trouble. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale. You can find trouble, believe me.
Sure.
And it's like, and I had a lot of friends that did, and it's like, but having wrestling completely changed the way that I looked at the world, and
immersing yourself in that.
Yeah, and the most influential man in my entire life was Jay Robinson, the head coach of Minnesota, because I went to his camp. And because I remember I had a stress fracture from running because we ran all the much and I had these terrible shoes, and I had a stress fracture in my tibia. You could see it. I was just like this big ball. And I remember we were running sprints and he saw me limping and he was like, get on your toes, like stand on your toes. And I stood on my toes and he goes, stop feeling sorry for yourself. And in that moment, this is the third practice of the day, right? So this is literally 6 hours of training because we did 8 hours. 3 or 4 2-hour practices a day, unless you got in trouble. Then they add a fifth. Got in trouble again, they'll add a sixth. They don't care. He was an Army Ranger, and so we ran it like that. And it stuck with me so bad.
How old were you?
17, 18. And he said, stop feeling sorry for yourself. And I was like, damn, that's what it is. I'm limping because it's like I want to see that. I want to show the other people that I'm putting in more effort than these other people because I'm hurt and I'm still doing it. Look at me. I'm trying harder than these guys, right? And I'm still, when we get on the mat wrestle, it was way better than running. You know, running sucked. Yeah. But it was like, I had to turn this shit off. I had to turn the switch off because the one thing you do on the end of the day, the last day, which is literally the easiest day, is to run a 15-mile run. And it's so easy because you're in such freaking crazy good shape. And I had to do it with a stress fracture. And the thing is that everybody thinks, oh, when you do the math and you add up all the, for the best part you can, how many 400s you did, or how many miles you ran, all that. When you add it up, you're practically running that amount all day, except you're doing it in horrible sprint-like fashion with weights over your head and all these crazy things that they made us do. And it was like, it was a game, because what they wanted to do is be like, oh, but you're that 15-mile run. The easiest thing you do, it is a joke because it takes 2 hours or less or whatever. And that's one practice worth. You don't have to do the other 3. And I remember thinking, and this is what they did to your mind when I was finishing it, because it took about halfway to my leg to stop hurting. And then I got to the top of it, and it's like a big hill, and you come back down in Minnesota. It's really pretty. And I remember going, I'm going to turn around. I'm going to run it again just because, and it was one of those things where it was like, that was the mind that they wanted, was to get you to stop feeling freaking sorry for yourself, dude. Like DC, there's a video of DC, like we're getting yelled at by Terry Brands. And it's like, what's your problem? Like you're letting this feeling that you have dictate how you're doing this. You're not giving enough. And it's like, I am, man, I'm giving on. And he was, right? But it's like, yeah, but if you can't do a push-up, you still can do 50. You still can do 50. And it's like, no, I can't. And the idea of it is that like you need to be able to like move this goalpost constantly. And obviously you can't do it all the time for every single thing, but it made the rest of my life like, like getting a PhD in neuroscience is way easier than wrestling in college.
Sure.
It just is. I mean, and like, if I had to do that again, because the weight cutting and the, making weight every week and the practices are crazy. You've got guys that are all grown men who want this spot. And I think that the thing that it just really taught me though is that like, if I want something, I can go get it. Right. And yes, I could try to go get it to be it, but I have to be mindful as to where I want to be in that level. I have no delusions that I'm going to get a Nobel Prize, you know what I mean, for what it is that I do. I don't want that. I know I'm more mindful about being like, what does it take to do that? No, never mind. You know what I mean? I'm fine being a good contributor, and I'm fine teaching other people how to do what I do who have less opportunity to do it, right? Like at Eastern, and I have a lot of first generation college students and stuff. And my job is to be like, you can do this, like you just, do something every day. Right. So when I teach them hard material, I'm like, you can't wait to the night before the test. You'll never learn it. It has to be. It's like being trained. Oh, I got a tournament tomorrow. I haven't been training at all. You're dead. You're going to die. Yeah. You're going to be out there for 2 minutes and you're going to gas. Right. So you know that. So you train ahead of time. So I tell them that same thing. Right. And then to explore, because like when we do experiments, they'll be like, how's this supposed to work? And I'm like, you tell me. They hate that.
Yeah.
They want the answer.
They want to be told.
Yeah. And it's like, and if I told you everything anyway, you still won't pick it all up. So we have to take it in bits and pieces, right? So there's got to be both, right? Like, and so, but yeah, I mean, like, it does matter that when you're young, you make a mark. But at the same time, I feel like if you have the right mentor, you can learn how to take time to decompress and to do other things, right? And to put the stupid phone down, because it disconnects you from actually like using your sensory systems for what they're supposed to do, distance and watching leaves go and close your eyes and listen to birds and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? To bring that cortisol level down, right? And to ground yourself, like you said, I could just like get hit by a car and lose my legs. I could, whatever. And to just be like, I'm not guaranteed anything in a split second. I can lose it all. Right. And that like, I'm just grateful to be alive. Right. And then also like to the other thing that we hadn't talked about was like, and to forgive, right? To let things go and forgive, right? So it's like to forgive people, to forgive yourself, and those are like the answers, like to being able to, move on, right? And then be like, okay, what am I going to do today? And is it good enough? Yeah, I don't have to beat myself up about it. I don't have to be, like resentful of myself or resentful of other people that I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve today. Because there's a level to that where you're like, come on, man. Like, like some people online, like influencers get like way too, and like, like this is I get up at 3 a.m. and I do this. Like, no, you don't.
Yeah. That's bullshit.
Crap. You don't do it all the time.
With your background, can you touch real quick on the effect of gaming and the brain if you What was your dissertation in?
I study sensory systems of like the oral cavity, so taste and thermal mechanosensory stuff.
Okay.
Taste and smell.
Does it, at any point in your PhD or academic journey, did you learn or touch or find anything related to like gaming and electronics that you might share with us or parents? I have 6 kids, and some of them play more than others, but I firsthand see the effect, and even closer with all of the parents and children in our program. Like that's probably the number one reason why they bring them in is gaming and electronics. I want to get them off, and they're just changing, and it's different. Like in your studies, did you run across or find anything?
The areas of the brain that I've learned about that are involved with these things does kind of validate the new research that I see coming out about it, right? So, so we're made to be in a 3-dimensional natural world, right? Like I'm seeing you guys sitting across from me. I know how far away we are. I can see the colors and all this sort of stuff in here or whatever, right? Like, and then with this 2-dimensional thing, right? Like there's not as much actual interaction, and the social feedback thing has changed because a lot of these kids will say whatever they want to each other, like through the chat, just like they do on Instagram. That single leg's not going to work. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is like so basic stuff. So, but like they can, so there's that, there's the bullying thing. But I think this, okay, we had Nintendo, we were talking about, we had Atari, we had Nintendo, whatever. I used to ride my bike like 8 miles to my friend's house, like in North, from where I lived in Fort Lauderdale all the way to like up to Lighthouse Point. Right? And we would play around and stuff like that. But then we would also go surfing and paddle out in these crazy waves of like, like literally like tropical storms, like in surfing those. And so we did play video games, and sometimes we spent a lot of time doing those things, but we also had like to get on the bike. Oh crap, it's going to take me this long to get home. My parents are going to be mad if I'm not home at whatever time, or call in or whatever, right? Because like we had to like, my mom didn't know where I was, right? So I had to be like,
no phones or even beepers for us at that time.
So she starts calling you.
There's payphones.
Right. And I had a beeper at one point when I was in high school, but it's like, she might call.
If you were cool, I remember that.
It was $1 a month, and it was like you could call this person and go, if she had to start calling, she was pretty cool. She pretty much didn't rag on me at all. But it's like, if she had to call 2 or 3 houses and I was not at any of those houses, now all of a sudden when I get in the door, she's not going to be happy because it was my responsibility at some point to let her know. So now they can just, on the same device they're playing on, you can text them and be like, be home at this time or whatever, or I know where you are because I can track your phone, or you know what I mean? So the responsibility factor, the easy stimulation of, the dopamine thing, but it's really, I think it's a lot of just like, we had games too, and we did play these things, but we also got outside, right? Sweat a lot and all that kind of stuff. And I think that is the part that you can include, because those things are here. We can't run away from them. We're all using computers and all these devices, and they're going to use them for learning. But to make them connect with nature, like my daughter plays soccer, my youngest one, she plays soccer. My oldest one is like going to start running now, and then she also like plays like in a. Do
you have 2 girls?
Yeah, and she like plays flute, right? So she's playing an instrument, right? So she's got that too, right? So and then we will tell her like, instead of, if you're going to use this iPad, maybe pick up some music, right? And like online and start using it for that. You can talk to your friends, and then one of her friends that she plays with, it's my older daughter. They will literally, because like there's not so much lag time like there used to be with the internet. They can actually like, they can play that part, she can play her part, and it's like, okay, so now we're closer to what we used to be and everything. But every once in a while, it's like her other friend will come over, like, can we go to walk to the park? I'm like, yes, like go. So I think just including it in, right? Because I think it's not an all or nothing thing. Like we can't have them at all because that's not reasonable. But then at the same time, like, show up to practice and put in that, because they may not want to go home and then just, rot, what they call it, the kids call it, like rot on the device after they've done jujitsu. They're going to come home, eat, take a shower, and be crushed, maybe read a book, set times.
After I get home from Metro and either talking to some parents or happen to see my kids on, if I see them, gaming after like school or work or whatever responsibilities are done, sometimes I'll just get these triggers because of what I see from kids. And like just a couple days ago, I just got this trigger from hearing just these stories of kids being so negatively affected from the internet and social media and gaming. I changed the Wi-Fi password in my entire house. Like it disconnected our Nest, it disconnected our TVs, like everything. And my wife's like, she's like, like you disconnected everything. I'm like, I'm starting from scratch. If somebody wants a password, let me know what you want it for, and I'll let you know. And I'll give it to you. Maybe a select few, or I'll start one by one.
Yep.
And I, as a parent, I just see that it's like I'm just really, really scared. About
fear can drive a lot of things too, like in terms of, because like I don't like it. My wife used to, so she's
females, sorry to cut you off, but females don't.
Sorry, Joe, can you pull your mic just a little closer?
Okay, yeah. My wife is a therapist, but she started off like in social work, like where she used to go into homes that were, when I first met her, I was like, you're not allowed to go in that neighborhood. Like, holy cow, right? And she'd walk in the neighborhood, she'd go into homes and all this stuff. And one of the things that I remember and it also attracted me to her so much, like when I first met her, was I was like, she's so tough mentally. And then she was telling these foster parents how to work with the kids. And the number one thing I think was they respect boundaries. They respect limitations, right? So if these kids have iPads and iPhones and all this stuff and whatever, and it's like they can get whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, right? There's no limitations. So it's like, there's nothing wrong with being like, okay, you have this much time to do this thing, right? Like this is book reading time. This is whatever, you know what I mean? You have to get something done on the internet. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And, you're allowed to raise your kids how you want, and I think they don't always like it, but they will learn how to respect certain boundaries. In the beginning, they push back because they want to know, what are the rules? How much can I do? And when she was working with the foster kids, a lot of times they would just like bail out, run out of the car when she's transporting them somewhere.
Yeah.
But then eventually they'll call her, not somebody else, because they know she's like, hey, now, like, you can't do that.
It's a form of stability.
Yeah. And so having guardrails, it's like this for everything, right? You do it in the class. You do it in the class. Look, man, we're doing this one position and your rules are these things. And if you go outside the rules because you're just trying to win everything, maybe you sit out or whatever, you time out then, or you whatever. They're going to respect you for setting the rules because it's your place. It's my place. I set the rules. And like in the beginning, maybe they're, but I think everybody does that. We don't know it. Like there was no exclusive rules that you gave me, but it's like, we're sitting here having this conversation and we're all men and we start trying to figure out what rules work, what rules don't. You know what I mean? Like, and so I'm not saying anything to offend anybody, but if I said anything that offended somebody, I would see maybe your reaction on your face and I would shift my rules a little bit. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, because maybe you set them, you're not allowed to do that to me. You know what I mean? And then I will respect that. Like, that's, I think, important that, because, I'm brought up in a way to respect my coaches, respect whatever, even if I don't like it, I should do it. And so I think that your kids will respect you for having boundaries,
Yeah, I'm different than my wife. I'm the mindset of, or thought process, pain. People do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. So when they make a mistake, I want them to feel as much pain as possible. And I don't hit my kids, so it's verbally, I have to use verbal judo or takeaway or something. So, but go ahead.
I think there was a couple points that were brought up. One about like work, it's tough to find the work ethic that we mentioned, and you hear about that from like, I think every generation thinks they're harder than the next generation. Like the boomers, like we're being told
how could that be possible today? Like
let's rewind it back, bro, to the Industrial Revolution. Like look at.
I'm talking about this one. Like
no, but I'm
15 to like. Or 5 to like
I understand.
25 or 30.
Careful on the table, guys.
Yeah, I know. I'm pounding stuff. So we went up to we were in Marquette and up North Michigan, and they just have these placards of like, here's some history about this place. It's like God's country. There's nothing up there, and they had one about like these fur traders, which is what it took to be a fur trader. Is inconceivable. Like I'm good. Like I want no part in that. And these were like 19-year-olds doing this at that time. So you're gonna tell me like that the boomers of this generation were as hard or as tough as those men? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe different levels. Or you go back to even the people of the Great Depression. You know, so I think this is where I think it's like when I was your age. It's just kind of like culturally we do that.
My daughter says to me, "Back in my day."
Yeah, I know back in my day. You know, so
I'm gonna challenge you on that, David.
I wonder. So I wonder if, and I wonder if, it was just a question, but I wonder if they have seen the fruit of where that comes from. And I can speak. I talked to a lot of business owners and, you know, guys who are like, they're talking about selling their business or whatever. I was like, your kids don't want it. They're like, they don't want any part of it, bro.
Yeah.
And because they've seen the cost and the sacrifice and what it kind of costs them their children, or at least a part of their relationship with their children and the way that it was. So I wonder, like, how many, like, I certainly think there's a level of irresponsible parenting that happens in every generation. Now, this new one is not exempt from it, right? It's not like that. It's not some novel product. But then I also wonder if they're like, yeah, see, my dad worked 60, 70 hours a week, and I never. You mentioned I had a reset when we were building Metro. You know, I was hanging doors, and then would come in here and you know, come in here to meet trials, coach class, clean the place, get home at 12 o'clock. You know, wake up at 6:30, go. And I always saw my daughter. She was. I would literally only see her like maybe 15 minutes a day, maybe. And then it got to a point to where like Amanda's like, no, like, you know, to talk about issues, like it was big issues. And so I think once they start to see those things, they're like, yeah, well, if that's what that work ethic gets me, I don't want it. And so now they do trump experiences. A lot of them are very much like, I want to go on trips and I want to go on travel and things. And whereas at least, you know, I think a lot of different generations, they're like, put that on the back end. Like when you retire, you can do those things. And now these kids are like, well, I just want to spend time with my friends a little bit. So I don't think it's, I've kind of learned to view it with a little bit more grace, I think too, because, you know, it's just a thought. If that's what the work ethic gets you, maybe they don't want the same, but it's
I've
always,
heard that from my kids.
It's
like,
always
one
too
of them
much
as
of,
they
it's
get
always
older.
too much of a good, you know, it's too much of a good thing. Then they go the other direction and then you don't, you know, there's an interesting book, well, an author, I'll say it's Abigail Schreier. She wrote a couple books. One is Irreversible Damage, and it was just talking about the coddling phase and what you're indirectly saying, how kids we're scared to send kids anywhere, right? Like what you're indirectly telling that kid is the world is too dangerous of a place for you, and you need me with you at all times. And so they're hearing that now, and so like. You talked about you riding your bike 8 miles in the 80s kids is such a cliche. And I'm like, man, I can't fathom
with a surfboard.
I cannot
and
fathom
on A1A and have the wind blow me into the road.
I cannot fathom and you were how old when you were doing that?
Oh, starting probably at 12 or 13.
That's so imagine Scarlett doing that in a couple years is inconceivable to me. Like completely like I can't. I cannot foresee that, you know, driving up. That would be the equivalent. What's 8 miles from Southgate? That would be like to Woodhaven. Riding her bike to Woodhaven is outlandish.
The landscape is different. You know, the big three manufactured the architectural design for vehicles. So there's a lot more businesses. There's a lot more traffic. There's a lot more cars. So it was traveling in Michigan, at least, is a lot different than riding your bike from neighborhood or one area to another in like Florida.
It was pretty dangerous.
To Joe's point and your point as well. I think if they're to make you feel a little bit better. I mean, your kids are some of the most mature kids I know. You know, start top to bottom, right? And it's not like all or nothing. It's and both. You know, play some games. You know, be with your friend. Don't feel but then like go on a hike. Yeah. You know, go outside. Go train jiu-jitsu. Go do some stuff. You know, like so and both.
You know, Joe. So you're you went through wrestling into grappling and judo, and you kind of coach at some clubs. So anytime like either myself or David were talking to somebody, our head and our hat is on how can we take this and apply it to and give it to our members. And the biggest, like you said, one of the biggest things you get from martial arts is discipline, focus, determination, drive, resolve, critical thinking. Have you worked in a setting with gyms versus club? Because club is kind of like, it's almost volunteer, right?
Yeah.
Or it's a nominal fee.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty much what I do. Yeah.
yeah. So like when you have somebody as a member coming in, they're not really the benefits of martial arts we know, but they're not necessarily signing up for that. Now, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Now you're going to try to put the jumper cables on there and make sure I stay in line and on a path to building, not just better technique, but better mental, physical resolve. And, the fighting is the easy part. The technique, like anybody could learn in a matter of minutes. You could drill it a couple times, see it. That's the easiest part we do. But, what you're really signing up for when you wrestle or grapple or jiu-jitsu and competing is learn how to be, strengthen your mind. The body is just, it's repetition. So,
and there's so many levels. And
yeah,
there's so many levels.
There
And
is.
that was when we were talking about earlier. It's like, what level do you want to be at? And then even when we're talking about parenting, like at one point during my postdoc, I couldn't help it. I was absent and it sucked. And then they wanted me to work over the weekends. And I said, weekends are for my wife and my kid. And then as time has gone on now, I'm involved in everything that they do. And they're extremely like pliable and plastic in that regard, where they understand. So it's on one hand, seeing them see somebody work really hard to achieve what they want is a good thing. But then also that they know that you work really hard and that you work really hard to put the time into them, right? Like as the parent also matters a lot to them. They see it like at bedtime and you talk to them. And I think as a coach, it's no different. Right? Like I put time, like people DM me and I don't charge them at all. I should be charging people at this point because it's kind of getting ridiculous, but it's like, I'm helping people with way more than actually grappling. They have fears, they have insecurities, you know what I mean? They're asking me about, relationship stuff because I'm 20 years older than them or whatever, after we've built, some rapport. And it's like, my job is to, is to be like, where are they at and what are their goals? Right. And then it'd be like, just try to see if they want my help. If they don't want my help, they don't want my help, right? And it's like you're saying, like you have paying customers, like maybe they just want to come in here and sweat and go home and they don't have any real goals. But to have a relationship with them and to say, like, what are your goals? Do you have any goals? Do you want to get something out of this? Like in my judo, it's different. You do not rank if you do not compete. And it's just the way it is. And that's okay because it's stated up the beginning, and it's like, but first tournament you ever enter in, he will promote you to green belt. And now what that means is depending on how good you are, you either move from novice to advanced. In my case, I just moved straight to advanced. I went right from one tournament right into black belt, but it's because in his mind, in his thing, I can't get a brown belt or a black belt if I'm not beating brown belts and black belts in competition. So to me, that's like, okay, I have a clear path. I know exactly how many people I need to beat, all that sort of stuff. And it gives me a clear-cut goal. For somebody else, that may not be the case. They may be too old. And then he's like, okay, you can do, he would prefer if people competed, right? But if they can't, like, let's say they're broken, they can do it a different way. They can do, I don't know if he's doing kata stuff or whatever, but there are testing procedures and stuff, right? But he would prefer if it was the competition thing because it's like, why don't you want? Are you scared? Good, dude, be scared, right? Try it anyway.
Do it scared.
And because we're a team, that's what made me gravitate to it so much is that this is a team. And now I'm the co-faculty advisor. Frank Gerlitz, my sensei, is the faculty advisor. I'm a co-faculty advisor.
At Eastern?
At Eastern, yeah. For the judo club, the Eastern Judo Club. And we have people even from U of M who train with us. Even though they
do you have
their own
crash
judo
pads
club.
there?
Oh, we train on the gymnastics floors, bro, the spring floors.
I was just going to say, I'd love to come visit. I love judo, but no crash pads, no.
Boom. No, you just sink into the floor. It's
okay.
Springs.
Yeah.
We train with the gymnastics. So we call it so we have the two gyms. We have Cat Paw, which is in Ypsilanti, like right in my neighborhood. I can walk to it, right? And It's in like they call it, I can't remember what it's called, Chapel, because I've heard some people call it that, or Chappelle Center, which is like right near the Rutherford Pool. And they have spring floors in there because it was built by Alec Visosky, if I say his name properly, who was a judoka at Eastern. And he built that spring floor. And he's an awesome guy. It really knows a lot about a lot of grappling. And then we have the spring floor there. We have the spring floor at Eastern, so that we can bury each other. And
does it only get activated like on the throw? Like, so otherwise it's pretty firm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a little weird when you're doing newaza or jiu-jitsu that you can hear them at first, but they're stiff. And so it really changes. It really helps. What I think it does more than anything, to be honest, is there's such a fear element to getting thrown in jiu-jitsu, and it's mainly because people just don't practice it enough. They don't practice ukemi, right, which is knowing how to break fall. Forward ukemi too, right, so that you slap the mat on the way down and not post and destroy your wrist, elbow, shoulder, face if you take the face. I've seen all of these injuries in wrestling, which is why I'm so passionate about what I talk about. But like learning how to fall properly is a super. Now to me, it's just so natural, right? If I get thrown on a regular mat versus it doesn't bother me. But in competition, I have no intentions of getting thrown. So I want to do the throwing. So I'm not afraid of it. But I think the spring floors really help you to not be afraid. All it really is that there are these really strong springs, and they're sitting on top of plywood, and then you overlay the plywood so that there's no gaps, right? And then the mats go on top of it, and it's awesome.
Yeah, you regret not getting them for our gym?
Oh, dude, we could have ordered 2 sets of mats for what Fuji's got them now. Fuji, well, because he's
Alec knows how to build them though. Yeah, the guy that built the.
I've seen him with tires.
That's so my sensei is a retired engineer, and that was what he said. If you can't afford them, then you just do it with tires.
We should try that and see.
You guys are welcome to come anytime you want. We train Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they're low level. The actual course. The Judo 1, Judo 2 at Eastern, and the MMA is low level. I mean, there are people who've never done it before. But then what happens is that it attracts students, and they keep coming back.
Yeah.
Right. And then we have the club members, and
you
go all the way up to right at Eastern Michigan. And then we have all the way for people first starting to Christian Gerlitz, who is my sensei's son, who is a Pan Am Games champion in Sambo and national champion at Judo. And he was ranked first in the world like when COVID hit. And he's good friends with Shintaro. Like they trained like for a long time. And
are there females?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, our female competitors are good too.
I'd love to bring my daughters up.
Yeah, my daughter on Tuesdays, like a lot of times I bring her there. She's small, but then I bring her on Saturdays to kids judo at Cat Paw in the morning at 10:30, and it's like cheap. And these guys, I mean, the guy that runs it, Steve Dean, I think maybe he went for his 3rd or 4th degree black belt, maybe 5th, I don't know, but he's been around a while. Really good coach, and they're not trying to kill him. It's more fun.
I keep saying I want to get ranked in judo because I gravitate towards the judo. I have for many years. It'll like that.
Super, dude. You're welcome anytime, and you'll see it's not like. Nobody's trying to kill each other. It's so scalable, right? If you want to go hard, you can go with Christian, I mean, and he doesn't have to go hard, as hard as you're going. A number, like we have a ton of black belts that come from all over that keep showing up, keep
I didn't
teaching.
know that.
And I think what's really cool about it for jiu-jitsu and why I'm really liking it is if you get the right grip, they can't pull guard really effectively.
And you can step into a pass and
Like I know for me that if I know that person's right-handed and I want to kill their power hand and I have a good sleeve grip, if they try to go pull guard, they're gonna pull themselves right into like a Toriando, but with like wrist, like one-handed one or knee on belly or whatever. They're not in a good position to do any of those things. Or there's so many cool things that you can do. And
that's why I like gi better.
Well, it's like we were talking about. I love the gi. I love the gi, and I loved it when I was
coming from a wrestler. D1.
So
I love the gi because my guard sucks. Like no gi, I don't have the same stuff I have in the gi. Like, and I play a straight up gi game in jiu-jitsu because I assimilate to whatever game we're playing. And when I started doing jiu-jitsu, it's like I'm not trying to wrestle people. I want to learn how to play a guard. And so I straight up started, lapel sleeves and
wrestling is like you ever see a kid that just got a new toy and they're like, oh my God, I just love this thing and they can't stop playing with it.
Yeah.
When he found wrestling, that was his thing.
So Well, and a background is like I only did gi. I preferred gi and did jujitsu like up until deep into purple, like for like 7 years, and then. But I think what came with it was this passivity of like because especially jujitsu in the gi, it's not forgiving. Like if I arm drag in the closed guard and I buddy up, you're not getting that arm back. Like I
Yeah.
really don't care.
Well, that's what I like about it.
I don't
You need
care.
now you need an answer.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
not just being a tough guy and being slippery.
Yeah. So right, and so but then we get into these points of like scramble, like just the concept of a scramble. The concept of a scramble to me was spazzy. Like if you're scrambling, you're No, there is number one sweep in ADCC wrestle up. Number one, like that scored the most sweep points, right? So I think there's and both, right? Like and both. Like we can play closed guard jiu-jitsu, but there's a time and a place. Like if you can scramble, and if you can blend those two,
It's the
I think
only way to stop making Dorian move was
Yeah,
to pull full guard
Yeah.
with those long legs
Yeah.
because that guy is a monster.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's cool about jiu-jitsu is because you can negate now. This guy moves
a lot of the
and he's
explosiveness,
strong and he's
yeah.
and he keeps passing north south or whatever. And it's like you've got to get a wrap on him.
Mhm.
And half guard ain't gonna do it. And reverse De La Hiva if he doesn't want to play that game or whatever is not gonna do it. So that was the smartest answer to that particular problem. Thing is now if you add in lapels though, man. Now you can start controlling posture better. Omoplatas actually work.
If we did a sleeveless gi,
pants only. Like Eddie Bravo. Oh, you're talking about like
Ryu,
Xiao,
like
was it
Ryu.
Xiao Jiao?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Chinese wrestler.
Like Master Ken.
Like Master
I'll probably
Ken.
butcher it.
Yeah.
That's
Pull up
called.
a picture.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
Master Ken.
He's so funny. I love
Yeah.
it.
Thing
So-
is, like, I love wrestling now and like judo in the jacket, like because I'm telling you, man, and this I tell people this and they don't want to hear it. One rule change or so in jiu-jitsu changes everything.
Of
All
course.
of a sudden they decide, let's make it really liberal and say a minute. You can't pass the guard for a minute. Stop, back up. Now all of a sudden, that changes everything. Now all of a sudden, the person who's better at taking somebody down and passing right off the takedown, because we're talking about how it can be more, it's more explosive and violent, and the bodies or body weights are moving in different areas. And this person who knows how to shoot underneath off the takedown, shoot in underneath and trap a leg, right? And if you've got pants on, even if you don't, if you're dry early on, you're in trouble. You just ran right into it, in your upper body goes this way, and they have you. You're done. And you either have like we saw a break in ADCC, or I'm sorry, a CJI, like too. That was the heel hook break. Like that was nasty. And
I can't. I don't like. I don't like watching those, man. It makes me queasy.
It is cool as hell though when you see somebody be able to have so much control when you know it's slippery. Like we do that armbar sequence that Bodoni did from the back, like in judo. Because in judo, if the failed takedown, the guy bails out and they go flat, you do not have any time. So you have a choice. You want to turn them or you want to submit them. And if they give you at least a tiny chicken wing for you to get your arm in there to go from that top armbar position, you have pants, you have a jacket to hold on, you have all this stuff. Yeah. For him to be able to do that at that level in no gi after being sweaty shows you how much control he had. Like Penna too, his arm bars, same thing. It's just unbelievable because we know that these guys, I mean, at some point we all know all the same moves. That's what makes grappling fun is that, like when we're talking about pin escapes, like I have to have the right frames. If I don't have the right frames, that guy's out. So he has to change the pin. I know which he's going to do. And if I get there before him, right, that's the game. That's the fun part, And so, but if they make one rule change, man, if they do that, stalling is a problem. We're not going to stay on the ground forever or whatever. Or,
I'll be the first to sign that petition.
Points count. Yeah. Because what'll end up happening is it just, when we get really good at this stuff, we know how to be cagey. I'm going to sit back and control your wrists and, be smart about my base. Well, okay. Is that really what the game is? Because I don't think that's really fun. Like in the gym, like I think people would think that I'm like this, like really aggressive, like training partner. And I'm really not. I would never have made it this long in my life. I've been doing this for 34 years. If I just like killed myself in the gym, like I chill. I go as
unless
hard.
You were beating people up this the whole time, and you were the hammer. It was nails all along the way.
Oh, I've had plenty of time. I've trained with. I mean, the amount of guys that I've trained with that are super high level for most of my life is. I'm so blessed, like to be, able to have the coaches that I had, and they don't always take it easy on you, Sure. But in jiu-jitsu, I found that like, and Jordan Presinger is the same way as I am. It's just like, I will use the effort, like he calls it the minimal effective dose, right? Like the amount of effort that I need in a particular situation.
Sure.
And in judo, I learned early on, like I did a tiny little bit of it after college wrestling, and the sensei said, you're stiff, I can feel where you're going to go. So if you're stiff, so it's the same thing if on the ground, if I'm all locked up, any movement that I move, you're going to feel it. But if I'm a little looser and I'm a little, you know, playing it soft, and then we can also play this for a long time. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to take a rest, if you want to tire a wrestler out, you know, who's brand new, they haven't done any jiu-jitsu, make 10-minute rounds. Make 3 10-minute rounds or whatever, or even 5-minute rounds, because and no breaks in between. Now all of a sudden you're training for 40 minutes, dude. You can't go full out. And I learned that really quick. Like first day in jiu-jitsu, like, ooh, got to scale it back to about 60, 65% if I want to have fun in here.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
and be okay with the fact that, like, you know, that guy's got position on me. The best thing for me to do is chill out and relax in here, you know, like, because if you try to flail around with somebody on your back, it's easier to tap somebody from a choke when they're exhausted, I think.
100%. 100%. So we have gone over time by more than a few, but it didn't feel like it. So do we have any? How can I don't see.
We only have one comment on Facebook from Chad Huber, who said, it's a while back now, it's about 30 minutes ago. He said, Professor meant to say that he has 6 kids and a future German Shepherd.
Yeah, the future German Shepherd.
Yes.
That's a big dog.
Yeah, I will take one. I will take one, Chad.
That's a big dog, man. Hairy dog too.
And as of right now, we just hit the 2-hour mark, which I think makes him so far our longest
I think it is.
conversation.
That's not surprising if you know me. So
how can I know you have a couple online courses. How can people like support you, and if they want to learn how to wrestle for jiu-jitsu, or they want to learn how to a little bit more about, like, you know, what you do, how can they find you?
Yeah, so the 2 courses, like wrestling for BJJ.com, was a lot of on the feet. And I do very fundamental stuff, because head position, hand position, all that kind of stuff is really important, because it'll translate to anything.
It's principle. Yeah. Principles.
And I don't like flashy stuff. And I wasn't a flashy wrestler. I was slick, but I wasn't like flashy. I didn't do big throws and all this stuff. I could sell big throws. Trust me, everybody does that. There's a 50% return rate on those things. Yeah. So that one is, there's stuff on the ground too. Rides Escapes is like all on the ground, and it teaches stuff that people are not teaching. Folk style stuff. How do you get out of a claw ride? How do you get out of a spiral ride? How do you use that to hold people down? So I teach how to control somebody from the back, right? And then how to get out of there if they do have your back, and how we use it in wrestling. And what I do is I'm like, okay, well, if you want to learn, like, you know, somebody's got hooks in a choke on you, you're using jiu-jitsu at that point, right? And then I'm like, so, but if before they get these things, hand control, you know, denying legs in, getting the hands out, basic folk style wrestling stuff, right? To where you can use this to not only, you know, get to your feet if that was your goal, but to reverse them, get on top and stay on top so that they can't pull guard. And then that's instructional. I teach a lot of like things that I came into jiu-jitsu and learned right away, is like wrist control and things of that nature are super useful. And like I said, if the rules change at all and like being on your back is a problem, like for a certain amount of time, and you do have to turtle, or an ADCC rules, if you want to turtle off a takedown, you don't want to just turtle off a takedown and stay there. Maybe you want to wrestle out of there. And so a lot of the folk style principles I put in there. And then I came up with some cool things for transitioning to them too.
Is your website is the club judo / grappling place that you have, is that does it have a regular schedule, and can people in that area also visit you guys there?
Yeah, so everything I did with Jordan, right, was in Canada, and then that's the online instructionals, right? And I feel like that's all everybody needs to know. Like, you know, and then because people like, you're going to put out more wrestling instructionals, and it's like, I mean, I don't see people wrestling with all the stuff that I've already put out, so, you know, learn how to do that stuff. So once they do, you know what I mean, if there's any more that you need, but like that system, those systems would get you really far. Like that's state level wrestling and beyond, like high level stuff, you know. And then like in terms of Eastern, right, like yes, we have a very running schedule during the fall and winter semesters every Tuesday, Thursday at 6 p.m. And it's in the Boeing Fieldhouse. It's actually technically the Warner Building, but like where the track is indoors, all the way at the back on the second floor. And anyone's welcome. My coach could care less. There's no drop-in fees or anything like that.
That'd be sick.
And then Cat Paw is run by my friend Alec Visosky, who was affiliated with. He still is. You know, he's a judoka. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. He's a catch wrestler. He's all those things. And he runs classes at Cat Paw all day, all the week long. And
why does that sound familiar? What city is that in?
It's Ipsy.
Oh, okay.
And it's right near. It's really close to Eastern.
Okay.
And so I'm actually starting. I just did started a wrestling day there on Saturday mornings. So before like at 8 a.m. before the judo class starts, and it's really small right now, and it's not giant. Like you guys have a lot of space, but you can wear shoes on that mat too. And so
sick.
And so and those are spring floors. So those are spring floors, and then the judo, and then at Eastern those are spring floors. And then I'm working. That's why I wanted to become the faculty advisor, so that I could get us in the rec center, so we could have access whenever we want, and then put spring floors in there, like turn one of the racquetball courts into a spring floor area, so that we could train whenever we want. Because like when I'm getting ready to compete, I wanna get some rounds in, dude. And sometimes it's kind of hard, you know, for that to happen, and train with judokas who are going to give me the right reactions and stuff, you know.
What's your weight? What's your competing weight?
160 point, what is it? 160.6, because what it converts in kilograms. So I'm like 168 right now.
Pounds?
I actually was going to compete on the 20th, but I've got some stuff acting up, and I usually at this age I'm like, and I haven't had enough. This week was weird. I didn't get to really go hard, and I'm like, my lungs are the most important factor. Yeah. My muscles have been good for a long time, so I'm not worried about that. But I just decided I'll go to the next one, you know. But so I need to, I don't step on the mat these days for competition unless I'm like things are humming right, and that usually for me takes work. You know what I mean? To like ramp it up and
I hear that. I definitely hear that.
Yeah, because I just don't want to. It's like my shoulder's acting up. I have the stupid knee surgery thing. Sometimes that thing acts up because I still have a tear in my medial meniscus. Apparently, a retore or whatever, butterfly popped. But it is what it is, man. I can't get it done. I'm not spending another year of because if they have to sew it back together again, like I'm not doing that until it starts locking up on me. It's not locking up yet, but it's doing this weird thing. So it feels like I'm walking like a marble in there.
Like grinding, like it's kind of like popping
at the low end when I if I squat all the way down and I go to squat back up, there's like some weird grinding stuff that happens, and then in the morning sometimes when I step down, I have to squat down to get it to, or sit in like a prayer kind of sitting back on my feet, that helps to get it opened it up. Something in there's sticking in. It could be one of the sutures my doctor said that maybe tore loose from the meniscus, but it's not locking up yet. So I still plan on competing in judo. I still plan on getting a competition level black belt. That's the goal, and so, cause I want to earn it, as hard as it is at my age. I'm competing against guys half my age, so that are black
judo?
belts. Yeah.
They don't have age and weight divisions?
They do, but I'm not doing it yet. My coach says it's not fair. So
okay.
I mean, I took a third in the state of Ohio, my second tournament in Ohio State Championships against, and the guy that won it was less than half my age, and the guy that took second that I had to compete against twice to try to take his spot away, because I had a chance after the people I beat and the people that he beat. I had a chance to take away his second because I had already gone up against them once, and the second time we went the distance, and it was a really awesome match. And I'm getting that. I mean, I'm right there, and I'm like, okay, I just need more. He was smarter than me. He knew the freaking game so well. He was so smart. On the ground, he pulled the lapel over his chin, because in judo, if you go to, because I bow and arrow choked one person already in that tournament, I did that, what they call a British roll, or I did a uchimata. He went straight down to his stomach, and I got the lapel grip and did a British roll and tapped him. And he when I went on his back, he pulled the lapel over his chin, because if I rolled him through and the lapel over his chin, it's not a clean choke, mate. They'll stop it. So he was smart. Every position we got in, he was smarter than me. And I was like, I respect that. I respect it on the mat too. I was like, this guy, when he got me the first match and I saw how he threw me, he got me to step a certain way. And then he buried me. And I was like, when I watched the film back, I was like, this guy beat me. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's so cool. Because to me, I'm like, you beat me with the technique, man. Like, and it's not just we're fighting and you're stronger than me and younger than me. I don't
Yeah.
make those excuses. You know, you out judoed me. And I was like, I posted all those matches, by the way, online.
Yeah.
So, because I'm totally transparent about what that was, what I was feeling in the moment, how I feel about it now, and all respect, dude. Like, you know, and I'm just going to keep doing it until I can't, until the wheels come off, dude. Because what else, man? I mean, if you sit around, it hurts worse.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
That's the truth.
My back will hurt more when I got my knee surgery. My back is all jacked up. I have like degenerating like discs and stuff, and I'm like an inch shorter than I used to be, which is not good considering my height already. And my knee, I was like, forget the knee. My back and my neck, like from sitting around on the couch, was awful. I couldn't wait till I could, you know, get up again.
The pain of living a sedentary lifestyle is definitely worse than the pain of like training and exercise.
And this, dude. More than one way, the mental part, bro. I was
sure.
like, I've got to, and it's not that I'm a type A and just have to move. It's that I'm like, I'm not useful to anybody else when I'm like this, man. Like I love being around the atmosphere of these students at EMU and being on the team, you know, like I'm on a team. It's a competitive team.
Yeah.
It's freaking awesome. And you guys would love the atmosphere. And my coach,
I'm definitely going to come down and visit.
You guys would
definitely.
love Frank is a character, and his son is just so knowledgeable, and they can transfer to any styles. They compete in sambo.
Y'all got any pizza places around there?
There's a couple good Mediterranean restaurants out there.
I like pizza.
Arabic, yeah.
Tough train.
Mr. Pizza, I guess, is okay, and then well, Aubrey's is like.
Is there a Whole Foods? Y'all got a Whole Foods? They have good pizza
down the street, yeah.
Okay.
And then, but the really known is for Dom's, which is the donuts place there.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not a big donut guy. I mean, I'll have a donut like this time of year. Cider Mill is the one. Those are tough to pass.
Yeah, we get them occasionally. The kids love them.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate having you on so much, Joe. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun talking shop. Learned a lot, absolutely, and like I knew we would. So if you guys want to learn more, it's wrestlingforbjj.com. That's the right domain.
And then the ridesescapes.com should be on there.
Rides, yeah.
Can we post a link for him?
I'll put I can put it in the description for you know for his hyperlink for all that, and then
Breza grappling is my handles or whatever.
Breza underscore grappling is his tag, and then we'll we'll make sure to put that. I think we shared one reel last night or whatever, collaborated with you on. So definitely love having you on, man.
EMU judo, cat paw. Those are the other places I trained. EMU. So Eastern Michigan University Judo and Cat Paw, right? Is where we train.
EMU, Judo, and Cat Paw. Yeah, we'll have to. Do they all have Instagrams? Those are the Instagrams?
They do have an Instagram. They call it Eagle Judo, though, because we're the Eastern Eagles.
Got it. Okay, Eagle Judo. Okay.
Yep, and then Cat Paw, that's Alec, I think, has his own Instagram, too. Cat Paw, because that's a grip in Judo.
Oh, got it.
And like I said, these guys are all versed in Jiu-Jitsu, too. So
sick.
When I first got there, it was like, Judo guys aren't good on the ground. And I'm like, the heck they aren't. They beat the crap out of me.
Yeah, right. Well, I appreciate you. Thanks for your time, you guys. We'll post all that. You can go check it out. In the meantime, as always, we'll see you all on the mats.
Thank you.